Chapter 34-33. Oh my God! The white-haired divine craftsman only used 2 hours to complete the divine armor. It's unbelievable. There's actually someone in this world who can refine a top-grade monarch divine armor in such a short time. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it even if you beat me to death. From the looks of it, we were indeed misled by the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. That white-haired divine craftsman is the true grandmaster. Everyone, don't be happy too early. The white-haired divine craftsman hasn't opened the furnace yet. Who knows if he succeeded or not? Many Sir Gods discussed in low voices. Their expressions and emotions were very complicated. Some were gloating, some were gloomy, but there were also some who refused to admit defeat. They still believed that the heavenly smelting divine craftsman would win. After all, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman had accumulated power in the Fire Mulberry region for nearly 10,000 years. Even if he had suffered a temporary setback and his power was affected, many Sir Gods still had hopes for him. Although the heavenly smelting divine craftsman in the hall was focused on refining, he could still feel the huge pressure. From the moment the white-haired divine craftsman finished refining, his heart tightened. His expression became very ugly and the sweat on his forehead became denser. He wasn't as shallow as those Sir Gods. He didn't need to guess to know that the white-haired divine craftsman must have succeeded. It could be imagined just how those divine Lord Realm refining Grand Masters outside would view him, how they would judge him. Therefore, he was anxious and angry. But he was indeed a God-King expert, a veteran divine craftsman who had been famous for many years. His state of mind was very calm. Even if he was facing such a huge power, he could still remain calm and continue refining calmly. Furthermore, while he was working steadily, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman could also increase his speed appropriately. Just based on this, his strength as a God-King and more than 10,000 years of refining experience were not in vain. Everyone waited patiently as they watched the heavenly smelting divine craftsman gradually complete the steps of refining the divine armor. When he finished inscribing the divine patterns on the divine armor and successfully refined the top-grade monarch divine armor, it was already 8 hours later. In the past, he would need an entire day to refine an icicle divine armor. But now, he only needed 8 hours to complete it. His speed had increased threefold. This was a huge improvement and also the result of him going all out. Unfortunately, he was still far too slow compared to the white-furred divine craftsman. When the divine craftsman finished his work and completed the divine armor, the divine lords outside the hall began to whisper to each other. It's finally done. The time used by the heavenly smelting divine craftsman is 4 times that of the white-haired divine craftsman. But, compared to the time that the heavenly smelting divine craftsman used to spend, he has already increased it by 3 times. In today's competition, heavenly smelting divine craftsman has gone all out. This should be his fastest speed. If there's no comparison, then there's no difference. The white-furred divine blacksmith's attainments in artifact forging are too terrifying. Everyone, don't worry. The results haven't been revealed yet. Although the heavenly smelting divine craftsman took a long time, the icicle divine armor he refined might be even better. Just as the divine lords were engaged in a heated discussion, the white-haired blacksmith opened his eyes and smiled at Ji Tianqing. Young noble, do you have anything to say as the witness of this competition? The heavenly smelting divine craftsman frowned as he glared at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, this king saw the 2 divine craftsmen's artifact forging process clearly. There was indeed no problem. From the looks of it, both divine craftsmen have completed their divine armor. In terms of the time that the 2 of them spent, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman took a longer time and was clearly inferior. Unless his divine armor is better than his opponent's, there's no chance of a draw. Otherwise, there was no need to say the rest. Everyone understood. The white-furred divine craftsman nodded in agreement with Ji Tianqing's words. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's face darkened as he coldly snorted. He did not say anything, nor did he object. Ji Tianqing said calmly, "Since there are no problems, please reveal the godly armors that you forged and let everyone judge." These words struck a chord in the hearts of many Sir gods. Everyone revealed a look of anticipation as they raised their heads in anticipation. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman did not decline and waved his hand to open the dark gold cauldron. Swoosh! With a flash of divine light, a dazzling ice blue armor flew out of the cauldron. This was the icicle divine armor that he was best at. The divine armor floated in the air, shining brightly and exuding a powerful divine power. It was clearly displayed in front of everyone's eyes. Dozens of divine lords craned their necks to take a closer look at the icicle divine armor, exclaiming and praising it from time to time. Wow! It's indeed the icicle divine armor that Lord Divine Craftsman is best at. I've only heard of it before, but I've never seen it with my own eyes. To be able to see it with my own eyes today, it's truly exquisite. I've seen the icicle divine armor that Lord Divine Craftsman forged in the past, and it's obviously far inferior to this divine armor. This icicle divine armor is definitely Lord Divine Craftsman's pinnacle work. It's already at the peak of the monarch level. It's perfect. This is definitely a perfect masterpiece. To be able to forge such a divine armor in my life, I won't have any regrets even if I die. As expected of the Lord Divine Craftsman who has been famous in the Fire Mulberry region for 10,000 years. Once he gets serious, it's terrifying. Many divine lords were full of praises, and their faces were filled with admiration. When the heavenly smelting divine craftsman heard the crowd's praises, he calmed down a lot, and his lips curled into a confident smile. That's right, this icicle divine armor was his pinnacle work. He was confident that there wouldn't be a second monarch-level divine artifact in the world that could surpass this divine armor. The white-haired divine craftsman looked at Ji Tianqing, and said calmly, "Mister, what do you think?" Ji Tianqing said calmly, "This divine armor, regardless of its defense, structure, use of materials, or use of forging techniques, it's all up to standard. Among the monarch-level divine artifacts, it's considered an outstanding armor. It's really not bad." This was Ji Tianqing's true opinion. He wasn't biased, and he was just speaking the truth. The white-haired divine craftsman nodded in agreement, and he believed in Sumo's words. However, when the heavenly smelting divine craftsman heard it, he couldn't help but curl his lips, and he sneered mockingly, "Ah! This icicle divine armor is a perfect masterpiece among the monarch-level divine artifacts. In your mouth, it's only not bad. If you say you're not in cahoots with each other, who would believe it?" The dozens of divine lords outside the hall also nodded quickly, and many of them agreed with the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. "Yeah. Such a perfect masterpiece, and you say it's not bad? Kid, do you know how to appreciate divine artifacts? Is there something wrong with your eyes? That guy doesn't have a problem with his eyes. There must be something wrong with his brain. Didn't the Lord Divine Craftsman say it? He's in cahoots with the white-haired divine craftsman, and he's purposely suppressing the Lord Divine Craftsman. That kid is unknown. What right does he have to evaluate the Lord Divine Craftsman's masterpiece?" Chapter 34-34. Although the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's performance had disappointed many divine lords. But it was different now. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman had shown his true ability and made an excellent icicle divine armor. To many divine lords, this was the perfect masterpiece of a monarch-level divine artifact. Everyone praised it. So, the divine lords returned to their normal state and were respectful to the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. As a result, no one agreed with Ji Tianqing's evaluation. Many people attacked and questioned him. Ji Tianqing didn't bother to refute. He just smiled indifferently. In the eyes of the divine lords, this icicle divine armor was perfect. But in fact, in the eyes of him and the other divine lords, it was only a good work. It wasn't even a masterpiece, let alone a perfect masterpiece. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman and many divine lords were talking noisily and mocking Ji Tianqing without restraint. The white-haired divine craftsman waved his hand and said in a dignified tone, "Don't rush to a conclusion. It's not too late to make a conclusion after you evaluate my divine armor." His words were filled with confidence and indifference. As his voice fell, the bronze cauldron opened. Swoosh! A dazzling light shone and a colorful light flew out of the cauldron. Everyone's eyes were focused on the five-colored divine light. When the divine craftsman and the dozens of divine lords saw the five-colored divine light clearly, they all showed surprised, stunned, and puzzled expressions. What is this? It's a light ball. Is this a divine armor? Ha ha ha. Don't play tricks. Isn't it just condensing the divine armor into a light ball? I can do it too. TSK, don't embarrass yourself with such a small trick. Can it compare to the icicle divine armor of Lord Divine Craftsman? Many divine emperors frowned and curled their lips, revealing expressions of contempt and disdain. But Ji Tianqing, Chao Qingyu, and Yan Ku, on the other hand, remained calm. Their eyes even flashed with amazement. The divine craftsman's body also stiffened. His brows furrowed as the confident sneer on his face gradually froze. The white-haired divine blacksmith didn't say anything. He simply raised his hand and snapped his fingers. In the next moment, the fist-sized five-colored divine light blossomed with a dazzling light as bright as the sun, releasing a holy and majestic aura. The cluster of light bloomed like a lotus flower and spread out in the air, quickly expanding into an exquisite armor. It was a multicolored divine armor. It looked like it was made of crystal, and it was sparkling and translucent. The divine armor looked natural. There were no seams, divine patterns, or patterns. There were no traces of craftsmanship or carving on it either. It was as if it existed naturally. Moreover, surging divine power flowed within the translucent divine armor. It also contained the power of dozens of laws and divine formations. The white-furred divine craftsman waved a hand, and a gentle breeze swept through the air. The godly armor was immediately blown away by the breeze and drifted away in midair. Without a doubt. Not only was this divine armor natural and exquisite, it was also as light as a feather. What was even more shocking was that as the white-furred divine craftsman's thoughts changed, the five-colored divine armor's appearance would also constantly change. It could expand or shrink at will, changing its appearance and shape. Not only could ordinary divine race members wear it, but even giants and rampage behemoths could wear it. Even an ant or a fly would be able to wear this godly armor. Seeing this scene, the hall was deathly silent. The divine craftsman's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. His brows were tightly knitted together, and his eyes were extremely grave. The dozens of Sir Gods outside the hall were dumbfounded and dumbfounded. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and their mouths were silently agape as they revealed expressions of disbelief. After a long while, those god lords finally came back to their senses and couldn't help exclaiming. Heavens! How can there be such an exquisite and marvelous armor in this world? Is this still a monarch-grade divine artifact? Why do I feel that it's a king-grade divine artifact? This is unbelievable. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that it was a monarch-grade divine armor. After living for more than 10,000 years, this old man has truly learned something today. Amazing. It's simply too amazing. This is absolutely a marvelous skill. Although I'm the in-name disciple of the divine craftsman, I can't go against my conscience, let alone lie through my teeth. I have to admit that this dreamlike armor is the perfect masterpiece among monarch-grade divine artifacts. Although the dozens of god lords all had some close or distant relationship with the divine craftsman. But the two divine armors had been defeated in front of everyone. No one could lie against their conscience. Everyone had an answer in their hearts. The divine craftsman had been utterly defeated in this competition. Furthermore, it wasn't as simple as his defeat. Compared to the dreamy divine armor, the icicle divine armor was simply not worth mentioning. It was so ordinary and vulgar that it was difficult to look at, like trash. For a moment, the dozens of god lords were silent. Their expressions were very strange. Their eyes were filled with disappointment, sympathy, and regret as they looked at the divine craftsman. The eyes that looked at the white-haired divine craftsman were burning like fire, filled with reverence and worship. As the witness and referee, Ji Tianqing announced the result in a timely manner. Everyone has seen the result. I believe there's no need for this king to say more. Everyone has an answer in their hearts. After all, the truth is right in front of them. No one can reverse black and white. The icicle divine armor refined by the divine craftsman is indeed very ordinary, very vulgar, and not worth mentioning. Furthermore, the time the divine craftsman spent was 4 times that of his opponent. More importantly, he used 13 kinds of refining materials, while his opponent only used 9 kinds of refining materials. Perhaps, you artifact refining grandmasters still don't understand the difference. But this king will tell you, only a true top-notch divine craftsman can use the simplest materials to refine the most perfect divine artifact. The divine craftsman's refining attainments and this. At this point, Ji Tianqing looked at the white-haired divine craftsman with an inquiring look. After all, he still did not know the white-haired divine craftsman's name and title. The white-haired divine craftsman smiled and said, "Just call me Heaven's Will Divine King." Ji Tianqing nodded and continued, "Compared to Heaven's Will Divine King, the divine craftsman's refining attainments are simply too appalling to look at. If the armor refined by Heaven's Will Divine King is a work of art, then the icicle divine armor refined by the divine craftsman is trash." The moment these words came out, Heaven's Will Divine King could not help laughing out loud. The divine lords outside the hall also held back their laughter, their expressions rather odd. But no one refuted. They all agreed with these words in their hearts. The divine craftsman's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He was so angry that his entire body trembled. Unparalleled humiliation and anger made his eyes bloodshot. His entire body was suffused with dense killing intent. He glared angrily at Ji Tianqing, gnashing his teeth and shouting angrily, "Punk! Although your strength and cultivation realms surpass this king's, in terms of refining attainments, what qualifications do you have to judge this king? You humiliated this king and slandered the armor this king refined as trash. But you don't know that you are worse than trash." Chapter 34-35. Although the heavenly smelting divine blacksmith was no match for Chao Qingyu and Yank, he did not dare to fight with Ji Tianqing. However, he was, after all, a god-king expert and a renowned divine craftsman. Many of his disciples and grand-disciples, as well as master craftsmen, were present. Ji Tianqing actually belittled him as if he was worthless. How could he not be furious? It was fine to say that he was weak, but it was absolutely impossible to say that his refining skills were trash. Ji Tianqing frowned and sneered disdainfully, Since you don't have the slightest self-awareness, then this prince will let you clearly see how big the gap between you and this prince is." With that, he was about to take out the divine cauldron and personally refine the divine artifact. The heavenly smelting divine blacksmith also sneered proudly, "This king wants to see if you can refine a divine artifact better than the icicle divine armor in 8 hours. At this moment, the Heavens Will God King suddenly raised his hand to interrupt Ji Tianqing. With a smile on his face, he said, "Young master, please calm down. This king's competition with the heavenly smelting divine craftsman has yet to end." With that said, not only was the heavenly smelting divine blacksmith stunned, the dozens of god monarchs outside the hall were also surprised and confused. What's going on? Hasn't their competition already ended? What is the white-haired divine blacksmith trying to do? He has already won against the heavenly smelting divine blacksmith. What other tricks is he trying to play? Heaven's will God King looked at the heavenly smelting divine blacksmith with a smile and asked, Heavenly smelting divine blacksmith, you haven't forgotten our bet, right? If you win this king, you can get 4 low-grade king-level divine artifacts or the corresponding refining materials. But if you lose, you have to admit in front of everyone that you are a hypocrite who fishes for fame, a fake divine blacksmith. Don't even think about changing the topic, and don't even think about going back on your word. After Heaven's will God King's reminder, everyone recalled that there was indeed such a thing. Before the competition between the 2 divine blacksmiths, everyone had witnessed this bet. The heavenly smelting divine blacksmith's face was as black as charcoal. He was humiliated so badly that his face contorted and his entire body trembled. He glared at the Heaven's will God King with bloodshot eyes and asked in a low voice, Young man, don't go too far. Do you really want to be so ruthless? Heaven's will God King sneered disapprovingly, You think that this king is ruthless just because you lost? What if you win? In any case, you're a divine king. You can win, but you can't afford to lose. Hurry up and fulfill the bet. Don't let everyone look down on you. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman became even more ashamed and angry. He was so angry that his entire body trembled. His blood chi flowed in reverse and he almost exploded on the spot. He turned his head to look at the ruins outside the hall and saw the faces of dozens of Sir Gods. He had thought that his disciples and grand-disciples would be as angry and humiliated as he was. However, he didn't. The Sir Gods had complicated expressions. Some were waiting calmly, some were looking forward to it, and some were gloating. However, no one was angry or humiliated for him, and no one spoke up to support him. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's heart was filled with sorrow, and his dizzy mind gradually woke up. Ha ha ha. This is human nature. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman retracted his gaze and couldn't help but sneer in his heart. At this time, the Heavens will God King urged again. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman did not dawdle. He endured the immense humiliation and grief, and closed his eyes. He said in a cold and indifferent tone, Today, this king lost to the Heavens will God King. I admit defeat. The words I'm willing to bet and I'm willing to admit defeat were pronounced very heavily, and even sounded like he was gnashing his teeth. The reason why he emphasized this point was to make it clear that what he was about to say was not voluntary, but to fulfill the bet. After pausing for a moment, he took a deep breath and continued, This king is a hypocrite who fishes for fame. I am a fake divine craftsman whose virtue does not match my position. Such a simple sentence, a short 20 words, had used up all of the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's strength. When he stammered out these words, it was as if all the strength in his body had been emptied. His body instantly became bent, and his aura aged and weakened to the extreme. In his life, he had never been so humiliated as he was today. For nearly 10,000 years, he had abused his power in the Fire Mulberry domain. It could be said that he could get whatever he wanted. Who would have thought that he would suffer such a huge setback today? Ruthlessly humiliated by the Heavens will God King, his old face trampled on the ground, but he could not even resist or escape. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman would definitely remember today's humiliation for life. After a long while, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman gathered his courage and opened his eyes. What he saw was the Heavens will God King's mocking smile, and the disdainful gazes of Ji Tianqing trio. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's face twitched. He hurriedly averted his gaze, not meeting their eyes. As for the dozens of divine lords outside the hall, he did not dare to look. He was afraid to see those divine lords reveal expressions of schadenfreude and ridicule. If that happened, he would definitely not be able to control his emotions and would explode on the spot. He lowered his head slightly and said in a cold tone, Heavens will God King, this king has fulfilled the bet. The Heavens will God King nodded and said, Amen, our competition is over. Next, it is this young master's turn to challenge this king. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman frowned and said in a furious tone, "No. He has to compete with this king first. This king wants to see, what qualifications does he have to be a judge, and what qualifications does he have to insult this king?" The heavens will God king could not help but sigh and said sympathetically, "Heavenly smelting divine craftsman, have you become muddle-headed from anger? As long as this young master also refines a monarch-level supreme-grade divine artifact and uses it to compete with us, won't the victor be decided? This way, it will be fair, and there will be no need for you and me to refine another divine artifact. It can be said to be the best of both worlds." Only then did the heavenly smelting divine craftsman realize that this was indeed the case. He suppressed his embarrassment and anger and nodded, saying, "Then let's do that." The heavens will God king ignored him. He raised his head to look at Ji Tianqing and asked, "This young master, please refine a divine armor on the spot. If you can surpass this king, then this king will abide by the bet and give you 4 low-grade king-level divine artifacts, or the corresponding refining materials." Ji Tianqing raised his brows and asked with interest, "Oh. The challenge rules have changed. 3 divine artifacts had turned into 4. Then what if this king loses? Don't tell me I have to be like the heavenly smelting divine craftsman." Without waiting for him to finish, the heavens will God king waved his hand and said, "Of course not. If you lose, there won't be any punishment. Just treat it as us exchanging refining insights." With that said, Ji Tianqing, Chao Qingyu and Yank all revealed smiles. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's body trembled and his expression became somewhat malevolent. His eyes flashed with intense anger and hatred. The heavens will God king's attitude towards him and Ji Tianqing was completely different. He had invisibly humiliated him once again. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman only felt his vision turn black and his mind become fuzzy. He was so angry that his chest was about to explode. If not for the fact that he wanted to see the results of Ji Tianqing's refining, he really wanted to turn and leave, immediately leaving this damned place that humiliated him to the extreme. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 34-36. Soon, Ji Tianqing began to refine. He sat cross-legged in the middle of the hall and took out the 9 heavens cauldron. Swish! Under his control, the ancient bronze cauldron expanded to the size of a water tank and floated in the air. The cauldron shone with a hazy divine light and exuded an ancient aura as though it came from ancient times. Ji Tianqing was focused as he formed a divine art with both hands and controlled the 9 heavens cauldron, activating 7 types of divine flames. The temperature in the 9 heavens cauldron rose rapidly as it exuded a majestic divine power. In just 100 breaths of time, the cauldron's temperature reached a suitable level as its aura and power were raised to the peak. Heavens will God king and heavenly smelting divine craftsman stood on the left and right sides of the hall. The two looked at Ji Tianqing's actions and sensed the aura of the 9 heavens cauldron as they revealed completely different expressions. Heavens will God king maintained his smile as he focused on Ji Tianqing, observing his refining techniques. His clear golden eyes were filled with surprise and curiosity. But heavenly smelting divine craftsman's expression was very gloomy as his brows furrowed. His eyes flickered with shock and resentment. As the saying goes, once an expert makes a move, the truth will be revealed. No matter how much heavenly smelting divine craftsman hated Ji Tianqing, he had to admit a fact. Ji Tianqing's refining skills were higher and his refining techniques were more exquisite and mysterious. He also had the demeanor of a grandmaster. A bad premonition arose in his heart. His heart gradually tightened and filled with worry. This damned little bastard, is he really a divine craftsman? His refining skills are higher than mine. Although the dozens of Sir Gods outside the hall couldn't understand Ji Tianqing's refining technique, they didn't know how powerful he was. But they were all refining grandmasters and knew a little. At the very least, Ji Tianqing took less time to prepare than the two divine craftsmen. Everyone stared at him without blinking as they discussed among themselves through telepathy. Very quickly, Ji Tianqing began to put the refining materials into the divine furnace. He took out the golden firestone, purple flame silver thread, heavenly star sand, and demon dragon tooth from his spatial ring and placed them into the divine cauldron. Fortunately, the competition was about refining a monarch-grade divine artifact. Ji Tianqing's spatial ring contained a huge amount of monarch-level resources and materials. If they competed in refining king-grade divine artifacts, he would have a headache. After all, what he lacked the most was king-level materials. Not long after, the 7 refining materials were all in place. Ji Tianqing closed the 9th heaven divine cauldron and began to concentrate on casting the artifact refining. And at this moment, Heaven's God King's eyes widened in shock. The divine craftsman skysmelting divine craftsman's body trembled as his eyes widened in anger, his face filled with disbelief. Even the dozens of Sir Gods outside the Grand Hall could tell something was amiss. They could not help but exclaim. "Oh my God! Is that kid crazy? Am I seeing things? He actually only used 7 kinds of refining materials. Crazy! He must be crazy. He only used 7 kinds of materials and he wants to refine a supreme-grade monarch-grade divine artifact. Ha ha ha. That kid will lose for sure. He definitely won't succeed. This already goes against the common sense of refining. If he can succeed, I'll twist my head off and kick it like a ball. I thought he really had some ability and was also a divine craftsman. Didn't think that he's just a clown trying to please the crowd." Practically everyone was sneering as they transmitted their voices to discuss and mock Ji Tianqing. The divine craftsman skysmelting divine craftsman in the Grand Hall was stunned for a moment before he also revealed a contemptuous sneer. Her. Just now, when I saw him refining the artifact refining, he even gave this king a fright. Looking at it now, he's just a clown. There's nothing to fear. The divine craftsman skysmelting divine craftsman also believed that Ji Tianqing was bound to fail. It was impossible for him to succeed. He already had victory in his hands and was waiting to see Ji Tianqing admit defeat dejectedly after his furnace exploded. At that time, he would ruthlessly humiliate Ji Tianqing and double his revenge. The ones with the calmest reactions were Chao Qingyu and Yank. The two stood behind Ji Tianqing with indifferent expressions as they waited. No matter how others looked at them, the two of them were filled with confidence. After all, they had personally seen Ji Tianqing refine artifacts and had absolute confidence in Ji Tianqing's artifact refining attainments. This scene fell into the eyes of the Heavens Will Divine King. He sized up Ji Tianqing with interest and thought to himself, this guy wants to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. He wants to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only does he want to trample the divine craftsman skysmelting divine craftsman to death, he also wants to defeat this king in one fell swoop. Looking at the expressions of his 2 guards, it seems like this is already a common occurrence. From the looks of it, this king is very likely to lose. Her. If he can defeat this king, then his identity will be obvious. Time passed. Everyone inside and outside the Grand Hall had their own thoughts. Ji Tianqing was not affected in the slightest. He focused on casting arts as usual and refining artifacts with all his might. In a short hour, he changed 4 different artifact refining techniques. His casting speed became faster and faster. Such unparalleled artifact refining methods required an endless stream of divine power to support. It was also fortunate that his divine power was incomparably robust. That was how he could support such a high-intensity casting and artifact refining. If it were any other low-ranked divine king, they would be exhausted in less than 15 minutes. Just as an hour passed, Ji Tianqing completed more than half of it. Inside the 9 heavens divine cauldron, the divine armor's artifact embryo was already stable. Following that, he started to carve the artifact embryo and inscribe divine marks and laws inside. As time passed bit by bit, everyone's hearts were in their throats. Their emotions became increasingly nervous. In a blink of an eye, it would be 2 hours in another 7 to 8 minutes. Right at this moment, Ji Tianqing finally finished his refinement. His task was complete. Swoosh! The divine light shuttling between his palms retracted. He stopped and opened his eyes. Opening his mouth, he spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Lifting his sleeve, he wiped away the fine beads of sweat on his forehead. No matter how powerful he was, no matter how brilliant his artifact refining methods were, going all out in artifact refining this time also expended a large amount of mental and physical strength. After all, this was the fastest artifact refining he had ever done in his entire life. There was silence in the grand hall. Heavens will Divine King revealed a look of disbelief, looking at Ji Tianqing like looking at a monster. Divine Craftsman Tianyi also had a dumbfounded look, staring at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. He muttered to himself, "Impossible. This is absolutely impossible." And the several dozen divine lords outside the grand hall immediately burst into an uproar after being stunned for a moment, erupting with deafening exclamations and shouts. "Oh my God! If not for seeing it with my own eyes, I simply wouldn't dare to believe that there's such a heaven-defying divine craftsman in this world. Heavens will Divine King only used 2 hours to complete the artifact refining. It's already beyond miraculous. This guy actually didn't use 2 hours, even half an hour earlier than Heavens will Divine King. This is absolutely a miracle. Too inconceivable. What kind of heaven-defying artifact refining method does one have to be able to complete in such a short time? It's over. Just based on artifact refining speed and technique, that boy has a complete victory. Whether that boy succeeded or not, nobody knows. What are you all so agitated for? Yeah. Maybe that boy failed in artifact refining. Or maybe the divine artifact he refined is very lousy. Chapter 34-37. Most of the divine lords were shocked by Ji Tianqing's refining speed. The crowd exclaimed as they admired Ji Tianqing and predicted that he had already won against skysmelting divine blacksmith. But there were a small number of divine lords who still held hope for skysmelting divine blacksmith. They believed that Ji Tianqing was just bluffing and that he must have failed in refining the artifact. Even if he succeeded, it would definitely be a defective product that could not compare to skysmelting divine blacksmith's icicle divine armor. Just as the crowd was discussing, Heavens will God King said, "Sir, may I know your name?" Without waiting for Ji Tianqing's reply, Chao Qingyu took the initiative to introduce, "My family's young master is Divine King Tianqing." Heavens will God King nodded slightly and said unhurriedly, "Everyone saw it just now. Sir Tianqing only used 7 refining materials and the time he used was also the shortest. This king used 2 hours and Sir Tianqing was faster than this king by half a minute. As such, as long as Sir Tianqing successfully refines a monarch-level supreme-grade divine armor, he will beat skysmelting divine blacksmith. If the divine armor he refines is of similar quality to this king's illusory divine armor, then he will beat this king." Heavens will God King's tone and attitude were very pertinent. Many divine lords could not help but nod in agreement. But skysmelting divine blacksmith frowned and sneered, "He, the two of you colluded with each other and are still acting in front of this king? Even if he succeeds in refining, if the quality is inferior to this king's icicle divine armor, he will still lose. What right does he have to beat this king?" Hearing this, many divine lords frowned as they looked at skysmelting divine blacksmith strangely. Everyone felt that skysmelting divine blacksmith was being unreasonable. He was clearly afraid of losing and had already begun to distort the truth. Heavens will God King sneered contemptuously, "Skysmelting divine blacksmith, you used 13 refining materials while he only used 7. You spent 8 hours, but he didn't even spend 2 hours. To be fair, what do you have to compete with him? You actually have the face to distort the truth. Aren't you ashamed? Being reprimanded by heaven's will God King in front of everyone, the sky-smelting divine craftsman was enraged and embarrassed. However, he did not dare to make a move against heaven's will divine king, nor could he afford to offend Ji Tianqing. He could only stiffen his neck and say, his pill cauldron has not been opened yet. No one knows if he has refined it or not. What are you so anxious about? It seemed that the two of them were going to continue arguing. Ji Tianqing raised his hand and said indifferently, there's no need to fight. Since the heavenly smelting divine craftsman still has hope in his heart, then this king will open the divine cauldron right now and let him see the truth. He paused and looked at the heavenly smelting divine craftsman mockingly. However, before I open the cauldron, I have two more words to say to the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. As long as there was a competition, there had to be some sort of prize. Let's make a bet as well. Do you dare to accept? Under Ji Tianqing's fierce gaze, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's aura weakened a little. He was actually a little worried and hesitant. This prince. Why did this prince make a bet with you? The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was clearly fierce in appearance but weak in heart. He was even stuttering when he spoke. Ji Tianqing immediately sneered. He. Aren't you very confident in your own refining skills? Aren't you certain that this prince has failed in refining? Why? This prince didn't even mention the contents of the bet and you're going to be a coward? Chao Qingyu and Yank immediately laughed loudly, not concealing their contempt and ridicule. The heavens will divine king also revealed a mocking smile and looked askance at the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's face flushed red with shame and anger. When he heard the divine lords outside the hall whispering and discussing, he became even more ashamed and angry. Let's bet then. Do you think this prince is afraid of you? In a fit of anger, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman steeled his heart and agreed. If you lose, this prince wants you to kneel in front of everyone and kowtow to this prince to admit your guilt. Although the heavenly smelting divine craftsman had already lost to the heavens will divine king. As long as he could beat Ji Tianqing, he could turn the tables. To him, this was undoubtedly the best way to redeem his face and regain his dignity. All right. Ji Tianqing also nodded in agreement and sneered. If you lose, then obediently take out 4 low-grade king-grade divine artifacts or the corresponding refining materials. What? The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's expression changed and he growled fiercely. You're really greedy. How can this prince have so many king-grade divine artifacts? What about the refining materials? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman frowned and gnashed his teeth. This prince has accumulated over 2,000 years of king-grade divine artifacts and it's only enough to refine 3 divine artifacts. 3 king-grade divine artifacts materials. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while before nodding. Alright, this prince accepts. If it's less, then so be it. It's free anyway. Pfft. The heavens will divine king was drinking tea and could not help but spit out a mouthful. He looked at the heavenly smelting divine craftsman with pity and thought to himself, this heavenly smelting divine craftsman is really stupid. After being provoked by young Master Tianqing's words, he obediently fell for it. His trump card had already been revealed, but young Master Tianqing's trump card is still hidden. Other than himself, no one knows the results of his refinement. But he was so confident and easily agreed to the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's bet. It can be seen that he should have full confidence. Thinking of this, the heavens will divine king could already guess the outcome. Ji Tianqing defeating the heavenly smelting divine craftsman should be a foregone conclusion. There was only one question left in his heart. Would Ji Tianqing beat him? At the same time, Chao Qingyu and Yank could not help but laugh. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was even more furious. He was so angry that he wanted to tear Ji Tianqing to pieces. He glared angrily at Ji Tianqing and shouted in a deep voice, "Kid, stop stalling. If you have the guts, show us the divine armor you refined and let everyone see what kind of goods it is." Not only was the heavenly smelting divine craftsman impatient, the dozens of divine lords outside the hall were also impatient from waiting. Under everyone's gaze, Ji Tianqing smiled and finally waved his hand to open the 9 heavens divine cauldron. Swoosh! The lid of the divine cauldron opened and immediately, a dazzling 5-colored divine light soared into the sky, illuminating the entire hall. Amidst the dazzling 5-colored divine light, a fist-sized gray mist rose up and floated in midair. Seeing this scene, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman was stunned for a moment. Then, he raised his head and laughed loudly, his expression incomparably contemptuous. "Ha ha ha. As this king expected, you little bastard deliberately mystified things. In fact, the refinement failed long ago." The many divine lords outside the hall also burst into laughter after coming back to their senses. Their expressions and eyes were full of ridicule. "Ahahaha, to think that I thought that kid was so powerful. I didn't expect that he had been acting all along. Like I said, how can 7 materials possibly refine a monarch-rank supreme-grade divine armor? Turns out that his cauldron exploded long ago. It's just that he hid it very well. How can there be any miracles in this world? Just based on him, he wants to break the common sense of the refining world. There's a good show to watch now. That kid has to kowtow and apologize to Lord Divine Craftsman." Chapter 34-38. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman and the dozens of divine lords gloated and laughed contemptuously as they mocked Ji Tianqing. Only Ji Tianqing, Yank, and Chao Qingyu remained calm. God King Tianyi frowned as he stared at the gray fog in the air. He sized it up curiously and his eyes were especially bright. Looking at the gray fog floating in the air, as if there was a dragon rolling in the fog, he was both shocked and curious. Unbelievable, how did he do it? At this time, Ji Tianqing saw that the heavenly smelting divine craftsman and the many divine lords were still immersed in excitement and could not help but remind them. "Is it very funny? Please open your eyes wide and look carefully." The heavenly smelting divine craftsman glanced at the gray fog and subconsciously sneered, "He, it's just the smoke after a failed refinement." What's there to see, however, before he could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. Because he suddenly realized that the gray fog was like a swimming dragon, condensed and did not dissipate. It kept circling in front of Ji Tianqing. That was definitely not the smoke after a cauldron explosion. Furthermore, the gray fog contained dozens of divine Tao laws and hundreds of divine array runes. All sorts of laws and array runes mixed and intertwined into wisps of smoke, changing unpredictably. To the heavenly smelting divine craftsman, not to mention fusing so many laws and runes, even if he was asked to identify each and every one of them, he could not do it. Immediately, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman was dumbfounded. He actually succeeded. That gray fog is actually the divine armor he refined. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman could not help but murmur, his tone filled with shock and disbelief. The dozens of divine lords outside the hall also quieted down. Everyone stared at the gray fog in the air, widening their magma eyes to observe carefully. Some people saw the clues and could not help but exclaim. Some people were still confused and did not know what was going on. But the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's expression was ugly and the atmosphere was strange. Everyone could guess that the outcome was not good. As expected. Ji Tianqing looked at the gray fog in front of him and said to the crowd, "This is the hidden dragon divine armor that this king refined, a supreme monarch grade armor. To be precise, this is a half-step king grade armor." The moment this was said, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman and dozens of divine lords trembled and felt even more shocked. He really succeeded in refining it. Heavens! How did the armor he refined turn into smoke? These are two completely different materials. A half-step king-grade armor. It took him less than 2 hours to make a half-step king-level armor. I don't believe it. I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. I've never heard of such a thing. 10,000 years ago, or even 10,000 years later, such a thing would never happen. He must be spouting nonsense, this doesn't make any sense. Many Sir gods were discussing in astonishment. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Heavenly smelting divine craftsman came back to his senses and was extremely agitated. He shouted fiercely, "That's impossible. Don't bluff. This king doesn't believe it." Ji Tianqing revealed a mocking smile and said, "This king expected you to have such a reaction and even deny it. Since that's the case, this king will wear this divine armor and you can attack me personally. Whether it's real or fake, we'll know once we try." The moment he said that, Ji Tianqing's mind moved. Immediately, the gray fog entered his body like a swimming dragon. The next moment, his body flickered with golden light as a dark golden divine armor appeared. This armor was as thin as a piece of paper, but it completely covered his body. Even his legs and feet were covered with boots. His entire body was covered, only revealing his pitch-black eyes. Such an exquisite and gorgeous armor on Ji Tianqing's body made him look especially sacred and dignified, causing countless divine lords to feel reverence. Even Heaven's will divine king could not help but praise, as expected of a perfect masterpiece. It's completely natural, without a single flaw or weakness. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was also shocked. He had to admit that this hidden dragon divine armor had left his icicle divine armor in the dust. However, he was not convinced. He gritted his teeth and raised his fists. Using all his strength, he clenched his fists and punched at Ji Tianqing. So what if the armor looks good? It's just a flashy gimmick. This king would like to see what use this papier-mâché armor has. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's angry roar was still reverberating in the hall. The next moment, he punched out 2 resplendent golden fist auras, which had already struck Ji Tianqing. To prove the hidden dragon divine armor's powerful defense, Ji Tianqing did not dodge. Bam! A deafening muffled sound burst out, causing the entire palace to shake violently. The dozens of divine lords outside the hall subconsciously retreated, afraid that they would be injured by the shockwave. However, what was shocking and puzzling was that there was no shockwave in the hall. The 2 fist auras shattered and were swallowed by the hidden dragon divine armor. The terrifying impact was also neutralized by the hidden dragon divine armor. Ji Tianqing still stood in his original spot. His body only swayed a few times, but he did not retreat half a step. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's punch did not cause any damage to him. Ripples appeared on the paper-thin hidden dragon divine armor. Very quickly, it regained its calm, leaving no traces behind. However, everyone discovered that the ground beneath Ji Tianqing's feet had split open into 2 ravines. The 10,000-foot mountain peak beneath everyone's feet had quietly collapsed, turning into endless powder. Fortunately, this hall was a king-level divine artifact. It was not damaged and still floated in the sky. This result shocked everyone on the spot. The dozens of divine lords stared with their eyes wide open. They opened their mouths silently, revealing looks of horror. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was also dumbfounded. He stared at his fists in a daze, his mind in a trance. Even Heaven's will divine king revealed a look of shock. His eyes shone brightly. After a moment, he was the first to regain his senses. He could not help but clap his hands and exclaim, "Wonderful! It's truly exquisite, truly marvelous." A half-step king-level divine armor has the effect of neutralizing 1,000 kilograms of force with little effort. It is not like ordinary divine armors that rely on hard materials and the power of defensive array formations to forcefully withstand attacks. It is like a living creature. Like a divine king, it can take the initiative to neutralize, absorb and divert attack power. This is definitely the most exquisite divine armor with the strongest defense below king-level divine artifacts. Heaven's Will Divine King saw it more clearly than everyone else. He revealed the profundity of the hidden dragon divine armor with a single sentence. He was agitated and spirited. He was very impressed with Ji Tianqing. The dozens of divine lords were also enlightened. All of them revealed looks of reverence and worship. They could not help but exclaim in admiration. As for the heavenly smelting divine craftsman, his face was ashen. He looked like he had lost his soul. His eyes also became vacant. No matter how unconvinced and indignant he was, he could only lower his head in front of the ironclad truth. Chapter 34-39. Both inside and outside the hall were noisy and bustling. However, the sky-smelting divine craftsman's limbs were ice-cold. His entire body was cold and he was trembling. Previously, he had already been crushed by Heaven's Will God King and suffered immense humiliation. And now, this scene was repeated once again. He was once again crushed by Ji Tianqing. His face and dignity were like rags that were trampled on the ground. The sky-smelting divine craftsman felt that he had lost all his face today. In the past 10,000 years, the sacred and dignified image that he had created collapsed at this moment and was reduced to ashes. Outside the hall, many divine lords were cheering excitedly. Their gazes of reverence and worship towards Ji Tianqing were the best proof. After a long while, the noisy crowd finally quieted down. Ji Tianqing looked at the sky-smelting divine craftsman and said with a mocking smile, "Sky-smelting divine craftsman, what else do you have to say?" The sky-smelting divine craftsman lowered his head. His eyes were dim and lifeless. He said in a low and emotionless tone, "This king has nothing to say." Yang frowned and said with a look of disdain, "Since you have admitted defeat, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and fulfill the bet. Don't think that you can avoid it by remaining silent and feigning ignorance. If you agree to a bet, you must accept defeat. If you do not hand over the prize, don't even think of walking out of this palace." Yang's attitude was rather overbearing. He stared at the sky-smelting divine craftsman warily, as though he was guarding against his escape. To the sky-smelting divine craftsman, this was undoubtedly another heavy blow and humiliation. Yet, his reaction was obvious to all. Not only Heaven's Will God King, even the dozens of divine lords could tell that he did not want to admit defeat. This king has been famous for 10,000 years and is renowned throughout the Fire Mulberry region. My character is obvious to all. You ugly monster, don't you dare slander this king's reputation. The sky-smelting divine craftsman glared at Yang and bellowed. Yang curled his lips in contempt and said with a sneer, "Old man, you are stalling for time so brazenly and you still say that you don't want to renege on your debt. Cut the crap and obediently take out the materials for 3 monarch-level divine artifacts. If you dare to play any tricks, I'll make sure you suffer the consequences." As he spoke, Yang twisted his neck and flexed his fists, revealing a ferocious expression. Looking at his posture, as long as the heavenly smelting divine craftsman continued to dawdle, he would personally snatch it. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was furious and ashamed. However, he had already suffered a loss and knew how powerful Yang and Chao Qingyu were. How could he look for trouble again? He had already been humiliated to the extreme today. If he were to be seriously injured by Yang again, it would be a complete injustice. With no other choice, he could only suppress the humiliation and pain in his heart. He took out various refining materials from his spatial ring and handed them to Ji Tianqing. He had spent many years of effort and went through many hardships to obtain every single one of these materials. But now, he had to hand it all over to Ji Tianqing. The sky-smelting divine craftsman felt his heart bleed, and his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He could only grit his teeth and remain silent. After a while, 21 sets of king-level refining materials were delivered to Ji Tianqing. This king is willing to accept his loss. These materials are yours. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman said in a hoarse voice and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing, who had been indifferent, suddenly spoke. Wait. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman could only stop and turn to look at him. What? I've already given you the materials. What else do you want? Ji Tianqing looked at the 21 sets of materials floating in the air and sneered. Are you sure these are materials for 3 king-level divine artifacts? It's impossible for you to use these materials to refine 2 king-level divine artifacts. Don't play such low-level tricks with me. It won't do you any good. You. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was so angry that his eyebrows twitched. That's right, he was indeed playing tricks and deliberately withheld more than 10 sets of refining materials. If he really had to take out those materials, it would have emptied his savings and made him want to cry. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was silent and did not move. Yang and Chao Qingyu did not need Ji Tianqing's instructions. They surrounded the heavenly smelting divine craftsman and blocked his path. The atmosphere in the main hall immediately became hostile. But God King of Heavens looked on coldly and had no intention of interfering. The dozens of divine lords outside the hall could only watch, not daring to say a word. At this time, anyone who dared to say anything was courting death. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was extremely humiliated and hesitant. In the end, reason prevailed over anger. He opened his interspatial ring with trembling hands and took out 14 more sets of king-level materials. A total of 36 sets of refining materials were handed to Ji Tianqing. It was as if all the strength in his body had been sucked out. His entire person had aged greatly, and his body had become even more crooked and miserable. All the refining materials are here. Can I leave now? The heavenly smelting divine craftsman lowered his head and did not dare to look at anyone's expression. At this time, he was angry and humiliated to the point of despair, but he would not show it. It would only invite ridicule. He swore in his heart that after leaving Fire Dragon Mountain, he would ask the Domain Lord for help. No matter what, he had to kill Ji Tianqing and the other 2 to vent his anger. Of course, if possible, he wanted to kill God King of Heaven's will as well. Ji Tianqing looked at the 36 sets of king-level materials and waved his hand to put them into his interspatial ring. He nodded to Chao Qingyu and Yang. The 2 returned to Ji Tianqing's side and watched the heavenly smelting divine craftsman leave. This old fellow really wants to do things the hard way. Is he asking for it? Yang watched his back as he walked out of the hall and could not help but mutter. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman stopped in his tracks but did not turn back. After taking a deep breath and suppressing his anger, he sped up and left the hall, flying into the sky. After a few breaths, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman disappeared into the sea of clouds. The inside and outside of the hall fell into silence. The dozens of god lords were hesitant, unable to advance or retreat. Logically speaking, since the heavenly smelting divine craftsman had left, they should also leave. But the battle between Ji Tianqing and God King of Heavens had yet to end, so no one was willing to leave. In addition, Ji Tianqing and God King of Heavens did not say anything, so they did not dare to leave rashly. If they angered the God King bigwigs, they would not be able to survive even if they had 10 lives. Therefore, everyone could only stand where they were obediently. In the hall, God King of Heavens stared at Ji Tianqing, who was wearing golden armor, and sized him up seriously for a long time before asking, "Young Master Tianqing, you inscribed more than 80 divine Tao laws and more than 100 array runes in this hidden dragon divine armor." "That's right." Ji Tianqing nodded. God King of Heavens asked again, "Other than being unpredictable and having super strong defense, the hidden dragon divine armor must have many other functions and uses, right?" Ji Tianqing nodded again. God King of Heavens asked again, this king is very curious. To refine a half-step king-level divine artifact in 2 hours and inscribe so many laws and runes, how did you do it? Chapter 3440. Towards this question, Ji Tianqing smiled but did not answer. Heavens will divine king raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, forget it, this must be your secret. If you are unwilling to say, then forget it. This king was rude. Pausing for a moment, he cupped his hands towards Ji Tianqing and said in a sincere tone, young Master Tianqing, before meeting you, this king had always been confident in his attainments in smithing. Be it lesser divine blacksmith or medium divine blacksmith, this king rarely met a match. Until today, when I met you and saw you refine this dragon concealment divine armor with my own eyes, this king knows that there is always someone better. Your understanding of the way of smithing, as well as the application of smithing techniques, has broadened this king's horizons. At the same time, you have also helped this king open up a path to continue improving my smithing attainments. For today's competition, this king admits defeat and admits defeat. Furthermore, this king is sincerely convinced. In front of everyone, Heavens will divine king admitted defeat with a sincere attitude. Even so, he did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he was in a good mood. Because watching Ji Tianqing refine had indeed given him inspiration. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, Heavens will divine king need not be humble. Among the ancient race disciples of your generation, your smithing attainments are already very outstanding. To outsiders, this was just a polite remark to console Heavens will divine king. But when Heavens will divine king heard this, his body shook and he looked at Ji Tianqing with deep meaning in his eyes. He did not show any abnormalities and asked, young Master Tianqing, do you want 4 pieces of king-grade divine artifacts or the corresponding smithing materials? Ji Tianqing said without hesitation, I still want materials. Heavens will divine king revealed an as expected expression and laughed self-deprecatingly, as expected. The divine artifacts this king refines cannot enter young master's eyes. Finished speaking, he took out 42 sets of king-grade materials from his interspatial ring and placed them in front of Ji Tianqing. There were all sorts of smithing materials with strange appearances and were all rare. Each set of materials shone with a dazzling divine light and emitted powerful divine power fluctuations. Ji Tianqing didn't stand on ceremony. He waved his hand and shot out a white light, collecting all the materials into his spatial ring. Presently, he already possessed over 70 sets of equipment refinement materials, and he only needed to spend a little more time to refine 7 king-grade divine artifacts. He had already achieved his goal of coming to Fire Dragon Mountain this time, and he had gained a lot. Compared to searching for treasures in secret realms, this method was simply too fast. The dozens of divine lords outside the Grand Hall watched with their own eyes as Heavens will God King admitted defeat and gave Ji Tianqing the refining materials. Their anxious hearts finally settled down. They finally saw the results, and the results were within their expectations. Everyone no longer had any worries and wanted to leave. The Heavens will God King also spoke in a timely manner, today's challenge is over, all of you may leave. You don't have to come again in the future. This king is very disappointed in the Fire Mulberry territory and will leave tomorrow. When the dozens of divine lords heard this, they felt a deep sense of regret and reluctance. However, they were unable to influence Heavens will God King's will, nor could they change the outcome. They could only leave with regret. 10 breaths later, the dozens of divine lords all left. Everyone gradually walked further and further away, still transmitting voice to discuss today's competition. The fascinating showdown of the 3 divine craftsmen let them feast their eyes, widen their horizons, and also learned many things. Inside the palace, only Heavens will God King and Ji Tianqing 3 people were left. Peace was restored. Ji Tianqing was just preparing to take his leave. But the Heavens will God King stopped him and said, Sir Tianqing, please hold on. Ji Tianqing raised his brows and asked, is there anything else? The Heavens Will God King smiled faintly and said, "Previously, this king guessed that Sir should be a descendant disciple of an ancient clan too." Hearing Sir's words earlier, this king became even more certain. Talking up to here, he revealed a pondering look and said while pacing, "Let this king guess, Sir Tianqing is a disciple of the Raging Flame Grotto? Or from the 100 Refinement Ancient Sect? Or perhaps, Sir is a disciple of the Nangong clan?" Ji Tianqing raised his brows and asked with interest, "How can you be certain that this king is a descendant of an ancient clan? And why would you think of the Raging Flame Grotto, 100 Refinements Ancient Sect, and Nangong clan?" Seeing that he did not deny it, the Heavens Will God King became even more certain and said with a faint smile, "This king's talent is shallow and my knowledge is limited. Currently, I only know that there are 18 ancient clans on the continent. And among the many ancient clans, Raging Flame Grotto, 100 Refinements Ancient Sect, and Nangong clan are the most proficient in the Tao of artifact refinement. But this king can't be certain which clan Sir is from." The Heavens Will God King spoke with assurance, and Ji Tianqing responded with ease. The two of them had outstanding demeanors, appearing rather mysterious and noble. But Chao Qingyu and Yank looked at each other, revealing a confused look, completely unable to understand what the two of them were talking about. Ji Tianqing stared at the Heavens Will God King and shook his head with a faint smile. "The three clans you mentioned have nothing to do with this king." I can't say that they are completely unrelated. There are still some interactions and grudges." The Heavens Will God King was stunned for a moment, then nodded slightly and said, "If that's the case, this king's knowledge is indeed shallow. Sir's clan must be very mysterious and low-key. Is it not among the 18 clans that this king mentioned?" Seeing that the Heavens Will God King was persistent and wanted to get to the bottom of the matter, Ji Tianqing hurriedly changed the topic. "Heavens Will God King, if this king did not guess wrongly, your surname should be Jiang, and you are from the Jiang clan, right?" The Heavens Will God King's eyes widened slightly, becoming even brighter. "That's right. This king, Jiang Tianyi, is the Jiang clan's 36th generation disciple, the Jiang clan's current 9th young master." "How did Sir deduce this? You must have a deep relationship with the Jiang clan, right?" Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled. "This king and the Jiang clan can be considered to have some friendship. From your attire, hairstyle and accessories, as well as your artifact refinement techniques, bloodline talent, and so on, it's not hard to discern your identity as a Jiang clan disciple." The Heavens Will God King became more and more spirited when he heard that. He laughed heartily and said, "In that case, Sir Tianqing is indeed an old friend of my clan. To be able to meet Sir here today, and have a spar with Sir, it's truly extremely fortunate. If Sir doesn't mind, let us become sworn brothers with different surnames, and help each other in the future." Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and interrupted him, asking with a smile, "What's your relationship with Jiang Chusheng and Jiang Chushao?" The Heavens Will God King answered without hesitation, "These two are elders of my clan, my second uncle and third uncle." The smile on Ji Tianqing's face deepened, and he spread his hands and said, "The two of them are your uncles, then the two of us cannot become sworn brothers. Otherwise, the seniority will be messed up." "Ah." The Heavens Will God King was stunned and asked, "Sir Tianqing, what do you mean?" Ji Tianqing hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth to explain. "Originally, due to certain reasons, this king cannot reveal my identity. However, this king trusts the Jiang clan, so I'll make an exception this once. Listen up, but you must not spread it out, or it will bring disaster to both of us." The Heavens Will God King saw his solemn tone and nodded solemnly, saying, "Sir, don't worry. I'll definitely keep it a secret." Only then did Ji Tianqing relax and said with a smile, "Jiang Chusheng and Jiang Chushao are both this king's in-name disciples." "Ah." The Heavens Will God King was dumbfounded on the spot, his entire person stunned. After a long while, he recovered his senses and muttered to himself with an odd expression, "If that's the case, wouldn't you become my master grandfather? This is too unbelievable. No. Sir Tianqing, you aren't deliberately taking advantage of me, right? The sudden secret seemed to contain a lot of information, causing the Heavens Will God King to be a little dazed. He sized up Ji Tianqing with an odd expression, unable to accept that this fellow who was younger than him was actually his master. It's not necessarily a bad thing that you missed that expedition. The Heavens Will God King was taken aback for a moment before he awkwardly replied, that's true. Back then, I was in seclusion. Since young Master Tianheng went to our tribe, we would definitely treat him warmly. Why haven't I heard my brothers mention you? Ji Tianqing answered, during that half a year, I stayed in the Jiang clan's heaven-drawing pagoda. Other than the patriarch, the protector, and a few elders, almost no one else has seen me. Not. Heavens Will Divine King was stunned for a moment. Only then did he reveal a look of realization as he said emotionally, so that's how it is. The sky-leading tower is the most sacred and dignified tower of our race. It's said to be our clan's cornerstone treasure that has been passed down since ancient times. But I still don't know what secrets are hidden in the top 3 levels of the Heaven Draw Tower. That's right. Back then, our clan did encounter a huge crisis that nearly affected our clan's fate. Later, I heard from the elders that they encountered a benefactor who helped them. There was a mysterious expert of virtue and prestige who helped them resolve the problem, allowing our clan to tide over the crisis. For the past 1,000 years, the clan leader and elders have been grateful for that benefactor's kindness, calling him our clan's benefactor. So, that mysterious benefactor, was you? Talking up to here, God Will Divine King's doubts were mostly dispelled. His eyes when looking at Ji Tianqing were filled with surprise, excitement, and reverence. What Ji Tianqing said just now was the Jiang clan's secret. If not for the Jiang clan's upper echelons, it was impossible to know so clearly. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, it was nothing. Not worth mentioning. Furthermore, I helped the Jiang clan, and the Jiang clan gave me 2 sets of top-notch materials. Actually, the Jiang clan doesn't owe me anything. No. God Will Divine King hurriedly waved his hand and said earnestly, to young master, it was nothing. But to our clan, it was a huge favor. If not for your help back then, our clan would have been, forget it, let's not talk about that. Young Master Tianqing, you are the Jiang clan's benefactor and also my elder. It's my fortune to be able to meet you here today. No matter what, please come with me to the Jiang clan and let them treat you well. Ji Tianqing shook his head gently and said, the Jiang clan has already thanked me back then. You don't have to take it to heart. Furthermore, God's induction grotto heaven is too far from here. It will take at least a few months to get there. I still have other things to do. Since you can leave God's induction grotto heaven, you must be shouldering a mission as well. You shouldn't waste time. Ji Tianqing knew the Jiang clan very well. Although the Jiang clan was prosperous and had many descendants, they all lived in seclusion in God's induction grotto heaven and basically did not show their faces in the secular world. Unless the Jiang clan's elders and disciples had to carry out some mission, only then would they leave God's induction grotto heaven. God Will Divine King hurriedly explained, young master, you mustn't say that. Coming out this time, I'm indeed shouldering the mission set by the clan. I have to recruit a few young disciples for the clan and absorb some fresh blood. But this mission is seriously insignificant compared to you. If the elders in the clan knew that I met you but didn't invite you to the Jiang clan as a guest, then I would have committed a huge mistake. At that time, not only would my father beat me up, second uncle, third uncle, and a few uncles would probably give me a good beating. God Will Divine King's attitude and tone were very sincere and earnest. Even if Ji Tianqing repeatedly declined, he was stubborn from start to end, insisting on inviting Ji Tianqing to the Jiang clan as a guest. Young Master Tianqing, no matter what, I won't give up. Even if you don't go to the Jiang clan as a guest, I still want to follow you, serve you, and repay you for saving the Jiang clan's life. Only then can I report back to the Jiang clan and suffer less beatings and scoldings. Young master, just take pity on little Seven. Seeing God will divine king speak so pitifully, Chao Qingyu and Yank were dumbfounded. The two exchanged glances and could not resist discussing with voice transmissions, my goodness, this kid is a middle-level god king. He actually needs to be beaten and scolded? Hearing the situation they are talking about, that Jiang clan seems to be very powerful. If any random young disciple is a middle-level god king, then wouldn't the entire Jiang clan become a god king clan? In the past, I read in ancient books that there were as many divine lords as dogs in the ancient era, and god kings were everywhere. Back then, I thought it was nonsense, too exaggerated and bizarre. Looking at it now, it's our knowledge that is too shallow. Chapter 34-42. Ji Tianqing could not dissuade Heaven's will God King. Seeing him so persistent, he could only agree for now. Forget it. I'm heading south anyway, and God's induction grotto heaven is also in the south. I'll go take a look. Seeing Ji Tianqing finally relenting, Heaven's will God King was overjoyed and revealed a brilliant smile. Great! Thank you for your understanding, young master, for helping me. There's no time to lose. Let's set off now. Having unexpectedly picked up a master grandpa, Heaven's will God King was very excited. He immediately wanted to leave Fire Dragon Mountain and return to God's induction grotto heaven to claim credit. After all, the Jiang clan's disciples were too outstanding. As one of the 9 most outstanding geniuses of the Jiang clan's younger generation, he actually felt a lot of pressure. Compared to the other 8 clan brothers, his talent was not the best. His divine Dao realm was not the highest. He was also not the most powerful in artifact forging and setting up arrays. Although his various abilities were very balanced, none of them were particularly outstanding. Therefore, he was considered the most gentle, ordinary, and mediocre among the 9 geniuses of the Jiang clan. But it was different now. He wanted to abduct this master grandpa back to the Jiang clan and make a great contribution. He could even imagine how happy and excited the clan head and elders would be when he brought the master grandpa back to God's induction grotto heaven. At that time, he would definitely be rewarded by the clan head, protectors, and elders, becoming the most dazzling one among the 9 geniuses. After all, the legend of the master grandpa saving the Jiang clan had been circulating in God's induction grotto heaven for thousands of years. Before long, Heaven's will God King steered the dark golden palace and flew into the sky. That's right. This dark golden palace was not an ordinary building. It was a mid-grade king-level divine artifact. After landing on the ground, it was a low-key palace. After flying into the sky, its appearance would change and become a divine ship. Of course, the interior space of the divine ship did not change. It was still the layout of the palace. Ji Tianqing and company stayed in the palace and were not affected at all. Heaven's will God King focused on steering the divine ship, flying south as fast as a stream of light. He was in a good mood and even could not help but hum a tune. However, he would occasionally mutter a few words, some strange thoughts flashing through his mind. I no longer have any doubts about the authenticity of this master grandpa. He knows so much about the Jiang clan and is willing to follow me back to the Jiang clan. However, he was a little too young. Could it be that his cultivation technique has the effect of rejuvenating one's youth? More than 1,000 years ago, he was already able to roam the ancient path of the starry sky and help my 2 uncles fend off foreign enemies and ensure their safe retreat. Moreover, the clan leader, protector, and several elders were all extremely respectful to him and worshipped him greatly. This means that Master Grandpa is at least a high divine king. Furthermore, he's very proficient in the Tao of artifact refinement. He looks so young, but I wonder what realm his strength has reached now. His strength and aura were both very mysterious, as vast as the sea, making it impossible for others to see through him. I wonder where he is now. If he doesn't join any forces, do I have any hopes of inviting him to join the Jiang clan? Heavens will God King mumbled to himself along the way. After pondering for a long time, he finally decided to find an opportunity to understand Master Grandpa. In any case, Master Grandpa looked more amiable, not the kind of cold attitude that kept people 1,000 miles away. On the other side, in a side chamber of Heaven's Will Palace, Ji Tianqing, Chao Qingyu, and Yank were all in a secret chamber. This secret chamber was set up with many king-level divine arrays that could isolate divine senses and all sorts of secret techniques. It was very secretive. Of course, Heaven's Will God King revered Ji Tianqing and would not casually spy on him. The secret chamber was dimly lit. Ji Tianqing sat in the middle, while Chao Qingyu and Yank stood on his left and right. The two of them had a bellyful of questions. Previously, with Heaven's Will God King present, it was not convenient for them to ask. Now, only the three of them were left in the secret chamber. The two of them looked at Ji Tianqing expectantly. Ji Tianqing glanced at the two of them and said calmly, "I know you must have a lot of questions. Ask whatever you want." Yank could not wait any longer and hurriedly asked, "Master, you and Heaven's Will God King are like playing riddles. What ancient clans and ancient clans? What's going on?" Chao Qingyu also hurriedly nodded and echoed, "That's right. I've lived in the boundless heaven continent for thousands of years. Why have I never heard of these?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "The so-called ancient clans and ancient clans are actually ancient clans that have survived from the ancient era until now. They have multiplied to become extremely powerful ancient clans. On the surface, the current situation in the boundless heaven continent is very stable. The Azura God Emperor unified the entire continent. He has more than 40 divine envoys and more than 100 domain lords under him. They are all God King experts. And below the domain lords are the various large empires and numerous divine kingdoms. But in reality, this is just the surface. The power structure of the continent is not so simple. The number of God King experts is also far more than this." Chao Qingyu and Yank both maintained silence, listening attentively. Their eyes revealed great interest. Ji Tianqing continued to explain, under normal circumstances, the lifespan of a God King expert is 99,000 years. 30,000 years ago was the ancient era. In the ancient era, the number of God King experts was numerous. A gathering of heroes, countless major powers. Many pinnacle God King experts established sects and clans, concealing their strength and biding their time, multiplying and gradually strengthening. These sects and clans often occupied grotto heavens and blessed lands, grasping vast amounts of cultivation resources and an excellent cultivation environment. Therefore, their descendants had excellent aptitudes and outstanding talents. It was very easy for God King experts to be born. Over time, the number of God King experts in the various large ancient clans became more and more. Their forces also became greater and greater. Of course, their control over the grotto heavens and blessed lands became firmer and firmer. Gradually, no one could replace them. Chao Qingyu could not resist asking, "Grotto heavens and blessed lands? Like the Jiang clan's god attraction Grotto Heaven? What kind of place is that? Is it like the various secret realms on the continent?" Ji Tianqing explained, "It's a little similar to the secret realms, but it's not. The so-called Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands have existed since the ancient era. They are like small worlds. They are not in the God realm, but they are attached to the God realm and are connected to the God realm. Every Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands have 10 times more divine power and various resources than the God realm. It is a cultivation holy land that countless forces drool over. I reckon that even the God Emperor, who controls the continent, would be moved." Yank scratched his head and said awkwardly, "How many Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands are there?" Why have I never heard of them? Could it be that my status and strength are not enough? That's right. You know yourself well. Ji Tianqing nodded and praised him. As far as I know, there are 72 grotto heavens and 36 blessed lands on the 4 continents of the God realm. I am not sure if they have increased or decreased. Chapter 34-43. Yank paused for a moment, then asked doubtfully, "My lord, can the blessed grotto heavens increase or decrease in size?" Ji Tianqing nodded. Of course. I'm not too sure how the blessed grotto heavens are formed. But one thing is for sure, the blessed grotto heavens are just small worlds, not eternal worlds like the God realm. Since it was a small world, under special and extreme circumstances, it could be damaged and destroyed. For example, back then. He wanted to say that the great battle of the gods 1,000 years ago originated from a certain grotto heaven. At that time, there were several dozen god-king powerhouses who engaged in a great battle in the paradise. They caused the paradise to be riddled with holes, almost destroying it. Of course, he was one of those godly kings. And he was the target of many godly kings' attacks. However, Ji Tianqing stopped halfway through his words. It was better not to reveal this matter. Chao Qingyu was full of anticipation, waiting for Ji Tianqing to continue. Yank saw that there was nothing else, so he urged Ji Tianqing anxiously. But Ji Tianqing just smiled and said nothing. The two of them were helpless and could only suppress their doubts. Yank stared at Ji Tianqing again and asked carefully, "My lord, since you entered the ancient path of the stars more than 1100 years ago and saved the Jiang clan, then why are you here? That means you were already a top godly king expert back then. If that's the case, 1,000 years ago in the primal chaos continent, the godly king of the sword who competed with my father and uncle, was it you?" This question had been hidden in Yank's heart for far too long. There were many times when he wanted to find an opportunity to ask Ji Tianqing. Today, when he heard Ji Tianqing and Ji Tianqing's conversation, he was even more certain that Ji Tianqing was the godly king of the sword. But this was still his guess. He had to get confirmation from Ji Tianqing himself. The secret room fell silent, and the air froze. Yank and Chao Qingyu stared at Ji Tianqing, waiting for his answer. Although this question had nothing to do with Chao Qingyu, he had a guess in his heart that was similar to Yank's. Ji Tianqing glanced at Yank and said with a faint smile, "You already have the answer in your heart. Why are you still asking me?" Yank was startled. He scratched his head and muttered, "My lord, what do you mean? You admit it?" Ji Tianqing smiled without saying anything. Yank turned to look at Chao Qingyu and asked through telepathy, "Xiao Chaozi, does the lord admit it?" Chao Qingyu couldn't help but roll his eyes and ignore him. The air was quiet again. Chao Qingyu had wanted to ask Ji Tianqing if the godly king who had enlightened him 1,000 years ago on the chaotic continent was Ji Tianqing. But Chao Qingyu had followed Ji Tianqing for so long that he was 70% sure. Now that he heard Ji Tianqing answer Yank, he had an answer in his heart. There was no need to ask anymore. It was all nonsense. But he still couldn't figure out a question. "My lord, there's a question that bothers me. I can't figure it out. 1,000 years ago, you were already a high-level godly king, a top-notch expert. Why is it that you have just entered the divine king realm and are still a lower divine king?" Yank was still puzzled by Ji Tianqing's words. He didn't understand what they meant. When he heard Chao Qingyu ask such an explosive question, he immediately shifted his attention and hurriedly nodded in agreement. That's right, that's right. My lord, I can't figure it out either." Ji Tianqing revealed a meaningful smile. His entire person became unfathomable. He explained, "Actually, neither you nor Jiang Tianyi can see my cultivation level and background. But you two have followed me for a long time. You saw me break through to the second level of the godly king realm with your own eyes. So only the two of you and the people around me know my cultivation level. Chao Qingyu nodded. Yank nodded as well. But you still haven't told me how your cultivation level regressed. Could it be that your godhead was destroyed by a stronger godly king and you had to cultivate again? Only someone like Yan Ku, who didn't think before speaking, would be so blunt with his words. Chao Qingyu had a similar thought, but he wouldn't say it out loud. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, Yank's explanation isn't quite accurate, but it's more or less the same. Yank and Chao Qingyu were shocked to hear this. Expressions of disbelief appeared on their faces. Heavens! My lord, I was just saying it casually. I didn't think it was true. Yank's eyes widened in shock and excitement. Young master, isn't this too unbelievable? Wouldn't one die if one's godhead was destroyed? How could one cultivate again? Chao Qingyu was calmer. He thought further and still couldn't accept this explanation. Before Ji Tianqing could reply, Yank glared at Chao Qingyu and said in a low voice, "What are you talking about? Who is my lord? We've followed him for so long. Don't you know how monstrous and heaven-defying he is? What is impossible for us is not a problem for the Lord. Let's not talk about the Lord recultivating, even if he was reborn, I would still believe it." Chao Qingyu rolled his eyes again and sneered, "Only a pig brain like you would believe in reincarnation. Do you think the 6 realms of reincarnation are fake? Do you think the heavenly laws are just for show?" Yank stubbornly straightened his neck and said in a firm tone, "I don't care about reincarnation or laws. I believe that there's nothing my lord can't do." Chao Qingyu was speechless. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet, and it was a little awkward. Chao Qingyu frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he sneered, "Hey, Yank, I've always thought that you were a blockhead. I didn't expect you to suddenly be enlightened. Your flattery is smooth. You're showing your true feelings." Seeing that the two were about to quarrel again, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and interrupted them. "Quiet. This topic ends here. You must keep it a secret. When we reach the Jiang clan, you must not speak carelessly. That's an ancient clan with many godly kings. If you cause any trouble, you can imagine the consequences." Chao Qingyu and Yank's expressions were solemn. They hurriedly nodded to show that they understood. "Please don't worry, young master. Qingyu knows what to do. Don't worry, my lord. I will not speak carelessly." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "All right, if you have nothing else, go cultivate in seclusion." After that, he took out the Jyotian 10 Absolutes Pagoda and put Yank into the distorted spacetime. Chao Qingyu was not in a hurry to enter his divine worship. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked worriedly, "Young master, the Jiang clan must have a high-level godly king, right? With your strength and methods, low-level and mid-level godly kings can't see through you. But if you meet a high-level godly king and they see through you, how will you explain it?" Ji Tianqing waved his hand and revealed a mysterious smile. He said in a strange tone, "Since I dare to go to the Jiang clan, I naturally have my ways and countermeasures. Jiang Tianyi is still intoxicated. He's fantasizing about how he will be rewarded if he brings me back. Poor child, just don't cry in the future." Yu. Finally, the number of laws on the swords reached 300 and the number of restrictions reached 3,000. Without a doubt, the 2 mid-grade king-level swords had been refined. When Ji Tianqing stopped and opened the 9th heaven cauldron, 2 dazzling sword lights shot into the sky. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 2 swords flew into the sky, dragging long tails of flames. They were like 2 divine dragons circling in the sky. Hundreds of millions of sword lights flashed like stars. The vast and mighty divine sword chi fell like a downpour. The space-time was affected by the sword chi and started to fluctuate. Ji Tianqing looked up at the two divine swords that were dancing in the air and revealed a gratified smile. With these two swords, Yao Yao's combat power will increase by several times. Moreover, the sword's attributes and laws are very compatible with her. I'll call these two swords the Sun and Moon swords for now. Indeed. Of the two swords flying in the sky, one was as golden as the sun, and the other was as silver as the moon. Even the aura emitted by the two swords was. One was blazing and violent, while the other was cold and restrained. After a while, when the aura of the two swords stabilized, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and put them away. Originally, he wanted to use this opportunity to refine another king-level divine spear for Ji Ku. But he calculated the time. 2.5 days had passed outside. Therefore, he left the distorted spacetime and returned to the secret room in the Heavens Will Divine Palace. He opened the secret room and walked into the hall of the Divine Palace. There were many divine arrays in the hall. Among them, there was an array that controlled the flight of the Divine Palace. In these few days, Heavens Will Divine King sat cross-legged in the hall and focused on controlling the Divine Palace. The moment Ji Tianqing walked into the hall, Heavens Will Divine King was startled awake. He hurriedly asked, "Young Master Tianqing, why aren't you recuperating? From here to God's Guide Grotto Heaven, we still have to pass through more than 20 domains. It will take at least half a year. You can go into seclusion and cultivate." Ji Tianqing nodded and asked, "Where are we now? Have we left Sanglan Empire?" Heavens Will Divine King thought for a moment and answered, "Currently, we are already at the southernmost part of Sanglan Empire. We will reach the border in another hour. After passing Sanglan Empire's border, we will enter Fire Mulberry Empire." Ji Tianqing's eyes narrowed slightly and asked, "Fire Mulberry Empire is located in the middle of Fire Mulberry region. It is the core empire of Fire Mulberry region, right?" "That is of course." Heavens Will Divine King nodded without hesitation. Ji Tianqing asked again, "Heavens Will, how much do you know about Fire Mulberry region and Fire Mulberry Empire? How many Divine King experts are there in the entire region? How many High Divine Lords are there in Fire Mulberry Empire?" Heavens Will Divine King answered without hesitation, "Although I have not been in Fire Mulberry region for long, I have only stayed for slightly more than a month. But I have investigated the situation beforehand. I have some understanding of Fire Mulberry region. Otherwise, I would not recruit disciples here. In the nearby 10 regions, Fire Mulberry region's faction is the strongest. This region has 4 divine kings. Other than the heavenly smelting divine craftsman, Fire Mulberry region lord has 2 deputies. Fire Mulberry region lord is called Bai Feng. His 2 deputies are a pair of Dao companions called Qin Yi and Wu Shui. That's right, that Bai Feng has some background. He is a high divine king who has been famous for 20,000 years. His strength has reached the 7th stage realm. Furthermore, he seems to have the bloodline of the divine beast Fire Phoenix. He has the mysterious annihilation divine eyes. He can predict good and bad luck and calculate heaven's secrets. Most importantly, I heard that he seems to have the shadow of divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven behind him. But I don't know if it is true or false. Anyway, I do not wish to interact with him, so I did not continue investigating." When he heard this, Ji Tianqing frowned slightly. His eyes were grave. He thought in his heart, Jing Feihong was killed. Golden Dragon Region Lord was exiled to the void. Stellar Aspect Divine Envoy also escaped with heavy injuries. Stellar Aspect Divine Envoy definitely hates me to the bone and will not let this matter rest. Even if he is heavily injured, he cannot chase after me. But with his identity, he should find other divine envoys to help and inform the various regions to intercept and kill me. Bai Feng's strength is so robust. He also has the relationship with divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven behind him. If I were Stellar Aspect Divine Envoy, I would probably find him for help too, right? Pausing for a moment, his pupils suddenly constricted. He muttered to himself, "Annihilation divine eyes. Can predict good and bad luck and calculate heaven's secrets." Chapter 34-45. Originally, Heavens Will Divine King and Ji Tianqing were chatting rather normally. Talking about the White Phoenix Divine King in the Divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven, Ji Tianqing fell into deep thought, his eyes solemn. Heavens Will Divine King detected his odd expression and asked in concern, "Young Master Tianqing, what's wrong with you? Is there a problem?" Ji Tianqing came back to his senses and waved his hand and said, "Nothing, don't worry. However, after entering the Fire Mulberry Empire, try your best to be more careful." "No problem." Heavens Will Divine King nodded his head in agreement, but asked worriedly, "Young Master Tianqing, did you offend the White Phoenix Divine King before? Or do you have some grudge with the Divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven?" Ji Tianqing thought to himself, if Divine Envoy Stellar Aspect really sent a message to the White Phoenix Divine King, he'll definitely make a move to help. He's the Fire Mulberry Domain Lord after all, the Azura God Emperor's subordinate. He naturally has to follow orders. As for the Divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven, back then, in order to temper my sword Dao, I broke through in a crisis. And also in order to find materials from the Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands to refine all kinds of divine weapons, I trampled over the 72 Grotto Heavens and 36 Blessed Lands one by one. That old Fire Phoenix definitely hates me until he gnashes his teeth in hatred, right? Although he thought so in his heart, Ji Tianqing pretended to be nonchalant on the surface and explained to Heavens Will Divine King, "What grudge can I have with the Divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven? Rather, the White Phoenix Divine King might have been offended. After all, I trampled on the heavenly smelting divine craftsman at Fire Dragon Mountain, making his face sweep to the ground, his prestige completely wiped out. I even won over 30 sets of king rank materials from him." The heavenly smelting divine craftsman was almost driven mad with anger. He definitely has a deep relationship with the White Phoenix Divine King. The White Phoenix Divine King might very well take action against me for the sake of the Fire Mulberry region's face. Heavens Will Divine King thought about it and said with a nod, "So that's how it is. Your worries aren't without reason. With the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's vengeful nature, he'll most likely find the White Phoenix Divine King for help. However, with your strength and means, what does a mere heavenly smelting divine craftsman count as? Even if the White Phoenix Divine King, you won't think much of it either." Although Heavens Will God King could not see through Ji Tianqing's cultivation realm and background, Heavens Will God King could not see through him. However, he firmly believed that this was because Ji Tianqing's cultivation level was too high. Moreover, the entire Jiang clan was in awe of Ji Tianqing. One could imagine that Ji Tianqing was absolutely a high-ranking divine king. Moreover, he was one of the best among the high-level god kings, an 8th or 9th stage god king. With such formidable strength, wouldn't they still do as they pleased in the boundless heaven continent? However, Heavens Will God King was quick-witted as he hurriedly smiled and said, "Young Master Tianqing, don't worry. Don't say that Divine King White Phoenix isn't your match. With me present, Divine King White Phoenix definitely won't dare to make things difficult for you. After all, our Jiang clan and the Divine Phoenix Grotto Heaven are both clans that are on par with each other. Divine King White Phoenix will definitely give me face. When the time comes, you don't have to worry about anything. I'll handle it." Heavens Will God King guaranteed rather confidently. It was also in order to perform in front of Ji Tianqing, so as to pull the relationship closer. Ji Tianqing knew what he was thinking. He just smiled and didn't say anything. "Alright, then you focus on steering the divine ship. I'll go to the hidden chamber to recuperate for a while." Finished talking, Ji Tianqing patted Heavens Will God King's shoulder, turned around, and left. Returning to 2.5 days ago. Ji Tianqing won the Heavenly Smelting Divine Craftsman at Fire Dragon Mountain Summit and obtained over 30 sets of king rank materials. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman swallowed his anger and humiliation, carrying monstrous hatred and extreme humiliation, and left Fire Dragon Mountain in a sorry state. Not long after leaving Fire Dragon Mountain, he took out a transmission jade slip and sought help from the White Phoenix Divine King. Normally, his relationship with the White Phoenix Divine King was pretty good and also helped the White Phoenix refine many king-rank divine artifacts. Furthermore, the various major empires' royal families and powerhouses also frequently had requests for him. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman believed that the White Phoenix Divine King would definitely help him take revenge. He explained everything that had happened in detail in his communication jade slip. After sending the message, he accelerated toward the Fire Mulberry Empire. 15 minutes later. At the northern border of the Fire Mulberry Empire, at the Man Chuan Pass that was adjacent to the Sang Lon Empire. There were several mountain ranges here, all extending for 1,000,000 miles. The mountains were steep, strange peaks and steep cliffs could be seen everywhere. And the Man Chuan Pass was the most majestic and precipitous pass at the border. Inside this impregnable pass, there were 200,000 Fire Mulberry Empire troops garrisoned all year round. They were commanded by over 40 high-ranked divine lords. A few days ago, the Fire Mulberry Emperor personally led the Imperial Guards, as well as over 100 divine lord powerhouses, and rushed to the Man Chuan Pass to hold the fort. Yesterday, the unparalleled Region Lord, Divine King White Phoenix, also brought Qin Yi and Wu Shui, personally coming to the Man Chuan Pass. The 200,000 troops guarding the Man Chuan Pass were all dumbfounded. While excited, they also felt uneasy and suppressed. To them, for His Majesty the Emperor to personally come to the Man Chuan Pass, it was already very inspiring. As for the Region Lord, that was even more unseen. To be able to see him with their own eyes, they were all fortunate of 3 lifetimes, enough to boast for a lifetime. But the garrison troops were not stupid. In these 2 days, high-ranked divine lords with high authority continuously rushed to the Man Chuan Pass from all directions to gather. The atmosphere at the Man Chuan Pass was very solemn, filled with killing intent like a storm was coming. The 200,000 garrison troops all had a premonition that something earth-shaking was definitely about to happen. Otherwise, there would not be so many experts and major figures gathered here. At the same time, in the commander's palace at the Man Chuan Pass, Divine King White Phoenix, who was currently meditating, received a message from the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. He finished circulating his energy, held the transmission jade slip in his hand, and read the information inside with his divine sense. Originally, his expression was indifferent, and his bearing was dignified. When he finished reading the information inside the jade slip, his tightly furrowed brows immediately relaxed, and the corners of his mouth even revealed a smile. Hu, truly surprising, this is simply a pleasant surprise. Qin Yi and Wu Shui had been guarding Divine King White Phoenix's 2 sides all along. Seeing him suddenly reveal a smile, Qin Yi could not resist asking, "Your Excellency, Region Lord, what made you so happy?" Divine King White Phoenix weighed the transmission jade slip in his hand and said with a playful smile, "Originally, according to our estimations, those few foreign race divine kings should have arrived at the Man Chuan Pass today. But they didn't come after a long time. We waited here bitterly, even wondering if something went wrong somewhere. The result, guess what? Those few foreign race divine kings actually went to Fire Dragon Mountain. Didn't the 2 of you say previously that a young divine craftsman taught the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's disciple a lesson at Fire Dragon Mountain?" Qin Yi and Wu Shui's eyes lit up, immediately revealing looks of pleasant surprise. "Your Excellency, could it be that you mean that those few foreign race divine kings also went to Fire Dragon Mountain and challenged that young divine craftsman?" Divine King White Phoenix nodded his head and said with a playful smile, "Amen. Not only did they challenge the young divine craftsman, they even ruthlessly smacked the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's face." Not only did the heavenly smelting divine craftsman lose all face in front of his disciples and grand disciples, he even lost more than 30 sets of king-rank materials. Look, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman just left Fire Dragon Mountain and sent this king a message for help, asking this king to help take revenge for him. Qin Ye's eyes immediately lit up, and he said with a heart full of pleasant surprise, "That's also to say that those few foreign race divine kings went to Fire Dragon Mountain, that's why they were delayed. They need at least 2.5 days before reaching Manchuan Pass. We still have ample time to prepare and can gather even more manpower." Chapter 34-46. Heavens will Divine King piloted the Divine Palace and sped through the sky. 100,000 miles ahead was Sanglan Empire's border. Crossing the undulating mountain range, they would enter Fire Mulberry Empire's borders. He remembered Ji Tianqing's exhortation and put away his sloppy attitude, becoming serious and focused. The Divine Palace's flying speed was neither fast nor slow. Defensive and investigative array formations were all activated, monitoring the situation in the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. He maintained caution, guarding against sudden situations that could occur at any time. Of course, he still could not help muttering in his heart. Isn't Sir Tianqing too cautious? Even if the heavenly smelting divine craftsman was viciously humiliated, he might plead with Divine King White Phoenix. But the heavenly smelting divine craftsman isn't Divine King White Phoenix's disciple. White Phoenix shouldn't go to war for him and personally take action to kill us, right? Heavens will Divine King felt that if Divine King White Phoenix really took action, then his relationship with the heavenly smelting divine craftsman was definitely not ordinary. But no matter what, he would bring up Divine Induction Grotto Heaven and the Jiang clan to deter Divine King White Phoenix. As long as Divine King White Phoenix was not a brute, he definitely would not make things difficult for him and Ji Tianqing. At the same time, on the border of the two great empires, inside Manchuan Pass, the 200,000-strong army had long spread out, lying in ambush in the surrounding mountain range. The many garrison troops were in teams of 1,000, respectively guarding the array corps of the various divine arrays. They were all fully armed and waiting to set off. There were also more than 260 high-level divine lords scattered throughout Flowing River Pass, hiding in the dark. They were all wearing divine armors and wielding divine weapons, silently waiting for the commander's orders. These high-ranking divine lords, a small portion was Fire Mulberry Empire's imperial guards and royal family retainers. The rest were the various great empires' elite powerhouses. Within close to 5 days, they rushed over from all directions of Fire Mulberry Domain under Domain Lord White Phoenix's orders and gathered at Manchuan Pass. In order to let them arrive in the shortest time possible, the various great empires obeyed the Domain Lord's orders and opened up the transmission divine array for them. Everyone's expressions were very solemn. They also understood in their hearts that the mission they were currently carrying out was definitely very important. Otherwise, Fire Mulberry Emperor and Domain Lord White Phoenix would also not come to Manchuan Pass personally. Manchuan Pass's commander's palace. Divine King White Phoenix sat upright on the throne at the head. She closed her eyes and rested, waiting patiently. Qin Yi and Wu Shui stood on his left and right, giving orders to the scouts and heralds that were entering and exiting the hall. Emperor Huisong stood in the main hall, followed by 4 commanders of the Imperial Guards, waiting for orders at any time. The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive, solemn, and filled with icy cold killing intent. Not long after, the various scouts and heralds finished their reports. Emperor Huisong bowed to Divine King White Phoenix and reported respectfully, "Field Master, 12 hours ago, we finished setting up the trap. Now, all 12 divine arrays had been activated. The army of 200,000 was in position. More than 260 Sir Gods were also prepared. After 2 rounds of checking, we made sure that there were no flaws or loopholes in our ambush. As long as those alien God Kings show themselves, they will no longer have a chance to escape. They will definitely die." Emperor Huisong's voice was sonorous and powerful. His tone was firm and full of confidence. Divine King White Phoenix on the throne opened her eyes and nodded slightly. She said in a dignified tone, "Pass down the order to all the soldiers to be on alert. Do not relax. I have just cast a spell to predict that the god ships of those alien god kings will pass by flowing Chuan Pass before sunset. For this operation, I have put in a lot of effort. In order to predict their tracks, I have paid a great price. If you fail to kill those alien god kings, bring your heads to me." The words "bring your heads to me" made Emperor Huasong's body tremble. His heart was in his throat. He had guessed that this operation would be very important. But he did not expect that the field master would be so determined to kill those alien god kings. She was determined to succeed. Only then did he realize how serious this matter was. He did not dare to hesitate. He quickly bowed and said sonorously, "Yes, field master." After that, he quickly turned and left the main hall to pass down the field master's order. However, just as Emperor Huasong walked to the door of the main hall, he saw a herald flying over as fast as lightning. Report. The herald was like a bolt of lightning. He brushed past Emperor Huasong and rushed to the main hall to kneel down. Almost without waiting for White Phoenix to speak, the herald reported with the fastest speed, reporting to Field Master, a godship was discovered 10,000 miles to the north. Suddenly hearing this news, White Phoenix, who had been gloomy and cold, suddenly had a bright look in her eyes. Her body also emitted a terrifying divine aura. Qin Yi and Wu Shui were shocked. They were full of anticipation. Even Emperor Huasong, who was at the door, was stunned for a moment. Then, his blood boiled. He looked at Divine King White Phoenix with a burning gaze and exclaimed in admiration, "Domain Lord, you are truly a divine strategist." White Phoenix did not care about this flattery. She raised her hand and ordered, "Pass down the order. Prepare to meet the enemy." As she spoke, she straightened her cloak and stood up from the throne. At this moment, another herald rushed into the main hall as fast as lightning. He knelt down in the main hall and reported. Report. Field Master, that unfamiliar godship is only 5,000 miles away from flowing Chuan Pass. It has already entered the ambush range. Although the news this herald reported was even more shocking and exciting, it was expected. However, this was within everyone's expectations, so they didn't feel too excited. White Phoenix looked sharply outside the main hall. Her lips curled into a cold smile. She said in a dignified tone, "Let's go. Follow me to meet them. Let's see what they are capable of." Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and Emperor Huasong were full of anticipation. They hurriedly nodded and acknowledged the order. White Phoenix strode across the main hall and walked towards the door. Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and Emperor Huasong hurriedly followed. They were already imagining how the god kings of the foreign races would look like. When Divine King White Phoenix reached the entrance, another messenger rushed over as fast as lightning. Before he could report, White Phoenix raised her hand to stop him. She said, "No need to report. The target has been caught. I will go and reel in the net now." That herald was stunned. His expression became a little strange. He wanted to say something but stopped. Qin Yi saw through the clues and asked with a frown, "What are you still standing there for? If there's nothing else, you can leave." The herald then braced himself and explained, "Field Master, I have another matter to report. Just now, Lord Divine General rushed to Flowing Chuan Pass and requested to see you. He knows that you are overseeing this place and want to deal with the foreign race god kings personally. He rushed over at his fastest speed. He wants to follow you into battle no matter what. He requests that you give him a chance to take revenge personally." Heavenly Smelting Divine Craftsman. White Phoenix looked surprised. She raised her eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "This fellow came at the right time. He wants to take revenge personally. All right, I will give him this chance." Chapter 34-47. Heaven's will divine king steered the palace and maintained a constant speed as he flew across the sky. The sun was already setting in the west, gradually descending into the horizon. Heaven's will divine king stared straight ahead as he released his consciousness to check the surrounding situation. Flowing Creek Pass is just ahead. After crossing that pass, I will enter the Fire Mulberry Empire. He muttered to himself as he steered the palace to fly towards Flowing Creek Pass. Although his consciousness detected that there were large numbers of armored sword-wielding soldiers around the pass, scattered in the mountains and forests. But he knew that Flowing Creek Pass had 200,000 guards to begin with. Although there were many guards, they were only celestial god experts. There were not many divine lord experts. As long as no divine king experts appeared, Heaven's will divine king would not be too concerned. To an expert like him, anyone below divine king was an ant. Even an army of 200,000 celestial gods could not do anything to him. But as the palace entered Flowing Creek Pass, Heaven's will divine king gradually sensed that something was amiss. Logically speaking, the guards of Flowing Creek Pass should be stationed within the pass. Only a small portion of the guards would go out to patrol. But the situation before him was different. An army of 200,000 celestial gods came out in full force and spread out around Flowing Creek Pass, forming an encirclement of 10,000 miles. Among the large army, there were over 200 high-ranking divine lords and over 300 middle-ranking and low-ranking divine lords. Those divine lords were divided into small teams and arranged in special positions. It looked like they had formed some kind of array formation. Heaven's will divine king immediately frowned and muttered to himself, "Those divine lords and 200,000 guards have formed an encirclement. It seems like they are waiting for rabbits to come to them. That can't be. Fire Mulberry Empire and Sanglon Empire have always been at peace. With White Phoenix divine king suppressing, the various large empires did not dare to start a war. If not to deal with Sanglon Empire, then who is the target of the 200,000 guards? Could it be young Master Tianqing? White Phoenix ordered Flowing Creek Pass to let the 200,000 guards intercept young Master Tianqing. In a blink of an eye, Heaven's will divine king analyzed the situation before him and sensed that something was amiss. That's not right. Even a fool knows that with just that army of 200,000 celestial gods, it is impossible to stop a few divine kings. Even if they set up a divine array formation is useless. Therefore, there's absolutely still a divine king powerhouse holding down the fort inside Boundless Pass. At the thought of this, God King Tian will no longer hesitated as he immediately activated the spatial god array in the palace. Regardless of whether his analysis was right or wrong, he had to teleport the palace 10,000 miles away and immediately cross the Flowing Creek Pass to escape the encirclement of the defending army. Shwa! The palace, which looked like a divine warship, immediately lit up with a dazzling white light and released powerful spatial divine power fluctuations. The palace was about to break through space and teleport thousands of miles away. At this critical moment, the dim Manchuan Pass lit up with resplendent multicolored divine light, illuminating the area within a radius of 10,000 miles. Hua La! 5-colored divine light appeared from all directions, forming a massive halo that sealed off an area with a radius of over 5,000 kilometers. In the blink of an eye, the circle of light extended into a curtain of light that covered the sky, forming a huge divine formation that sealed off the area. The space within a 10,000-mile radius froze. The divine matrix was activated, releasing an invisible pressure that enveloped the palace of Heaven's will. Suddenly, the palace's teleportation was interrupted. The space around the palace was like a frozen block of ice, squeezing it hard. Kacha! Kacha! With a series of shattering sounds, the divine light on the surface of the palace of Heaven's will quickly shattered. But this was only the beginning of the ambush. After the first divine matrix was activated, the surroundings of the Flowing Creek Pass lit up with resplendent divine light again. Shwa! Shwa! One after another, massive light screens formed in the sky, sealing off an area with a radius of 5,000 kilometers. Outside the first sealing divine matrix, one divine matrix after another was activated, completely sealing off the area. No matter how capable God King Tianwu was, he could not break these divine matrices in a short period of time, much less escape from the Flowing Creek Pass. Damn it! We've fallen into an ambush. They actually set up so many divine matrices in the Flowing Creek Pass. God King Tianwu frowned as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. But he did not panic in the face of danger. He controlled the palace to stop in the sky and calmly observed the situation. At the same time, tens of thousands of divine lights lit up in the Flowing Creek Pass as earth-shattering battle cries rang out. Kill! They've been surrounded. Charge! Nearly 100,000 well-equipped defenders, brandishing all sorts of divine weapons, surged out from all directions and charged at the Palace of Heaven's will. Furthermore, outside the commander's palace in the Flowing Creek Pass, Bai Feng also led Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and Emperor Huasong across the sky, flying towards the Palace of Heaven's will. Of course, just as the four of them left the commander's palace, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman flew over. He flew in front of divine King Bai Feng and bowed, saying in an agitated tone, "Greetings, Domain Lord. This king was once humiliated by those foreign race divine kings, and I swear to avenge this grudge. This king wants to take revenge with his own hands, and kill the enemy with his own hands, please allow it." Divine King Bai Feng glanced at him and nodded slightly. Heavenly smelting divine craftsman is willing to help this king, how can this king not agree? Heavenly smelting divine craftsman was overjoyed as he hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed, "Many thanks, Domain Lord." Following that, he joined the group and followed Bai Feng divine king to the Palace of Heaven's will. After a few breaths, the encirclement of close to 100,000 guards closed in, surrounding the Palace of Heaven's will. Everyone wielded their swords and sabers, aiming at the palace that flickered with divine light. As long as the commander gave the order, they would launch an attack with all their might. And at this time, divine King Bai Feng and the rest also rushed to the scene. When they were still 100 miles away from the palace, everyone stopped in the sky, watching with cold eyes. Everyone saw with their own eyes that the resplendent divine ship continuously shattered under the combined suppression of the 9 divine arrays. Before long, the divine ship collapsed, turning into a golden palace with a radius of 100,000 feet. Seeing this scene, divine King Bai Feng and the rest all frowned, revealing puzzled looks. "Domain Lord, this divine ship seems to be different from the scene you predicted?" Qin Yi could not resist opening his mouth to ask. Wu Shui also nodded and seconded, "Domain Lord, in the scene you predicted previously, those few foreign race divine kings were riding on an azure divine ship. But this divine ship in front of us is a palace. Could it be that we stopped the wrong people?" Emperor Huasong did not know the truth and did not have the right to speak, so he maintained silence. Heavenly smelting divine craftsman stared at the Palace of Heaven's will. After carefully observing for a moment, he suddenly said agitatedly, "We didn't stop the wrong people. This king recognizes this palace. This is that young divine craftsman's palace. It's him who provoked this king at Fire Dragon Mountain, that's why this incident happened. Towards heavens will divine king, he also hated him to the bones. If he could borrow divine King Bai Feng's hands to eliminate heavens will divine king, he was naturally very happy and looking forward to it. However, divine King Bai Feng frowned and said in a solemn voice, those few foreign race divine kings are this king's primary target." Chapter 34-48. Indeed. Divine King White Phoenix made such a big fuss just to intercept and kill Ji Tianqing and company. After all, this was stellar aspect divine envoy's order and also represented the will of the Azura God Emperor. As the Fire Mulberry Domain Lord, divine King White Phoenix naturally had to carry it out unconditionally. But Divine King White Phoenix was not interested in the matter of Divine Craftsman Skysmelting being humiliated by other Divine Craftsmen, nor did he think of avenging him. His own skills were inferior and he lost face in front of his disciples and grand disciples. Who could he blame? Seeing Divine King White Phoenix's firm attitude, Divine Craftsman Skysmelting immediately became anxious. He pointed at Heaven's Will Palace and said in a certain tone, "Your Excellency Domain Lord, this king saw them at Fire Dragon Mountain and even competed with them, so I understand them better. That young Divine Craftsman is in cahoots with a few foreign race Divine Kings. They deliberately schemed against this king and joined hands to put on a two-man show, causing this king to lose face." Hearing Divine Craftsman Skysmelting's words, Divine King White Phoenix frowned again. He looked at Divine Craftsman Skysmelting with a dignified gaze and said in a deep voice, "Don't make irresponsible remarks to this king for the sake of taking revenge. You have to think carefully about the price of using and deceiving this king." No one was stupid. Divine King White Phoenix also would not completely believe Divine Craftsman Skysmelting. Divine Craftsman Skysmelting's expression immediately turned ugly and somewhat hesitant. But the words had already been spoken and could not be taken back. If he cowered now, it would prove that he was using Divine King White Phoenix to take revenge. Therefore, Divine Craftsman Skysmelting weighed the pros and cons before saying firmly, "Your Excellency Domain Lord, rest assured. Every word this king said is true." Regardless of the consequences, Divine Craftsman Skysmelting decided to take a gamble. Divine King White Phoenix gave him a deep look and did not say anything else. He ordered in a deep voice, "Search that palace." Qin Yi and Wuxia said yes at the same time and drew their divine weapons and flew towards Heaven's Will Palace. And at this time, Heaven's Will Palace's door opened. Wearing a white cloak, the white-haired Heaven's Will Divine King walked out of the palace's door. He thought to himself, "Indeed, as I expected, White Phoenix really brought Divine Craftsman Skysmelting and two deputies to set up an ambush here, waiting for us to walk into the trap." On the surface, he remained calm and collected. His expression and eyes were cold and indifferent. Standing at the entrance of the palace, he coldly swept his gaze across by Feng, the Divine Craftsman, Qin Yi, and Wuxia as his lips curled into a cold smile. Jiang Tianyi even said to the image recording crystal, "This king came to the Fire Mulberry domain and set up an arena at Fire Dragon Mountain to accept the challenge of all the weapon craftsmen and choose disciples from them. The heavenly smelting Divine Craftsman's disciples all lost face. Thus, the heavenly smelting Divine Craftsman personally came to challenge this king but was also crushed by this king and lost miserably in front of everyone. Who would have thought that in order to help the heavenly smelting Divine Craftsman, Domain Lord Bai Feng actually set up a massive ambush at Flowing River Pass and even found a dignified excuse." Jiang Tianyi explained the cause and process of the matter in a concise manner. Looking at his posture, he would definitely release the image recording crystal to the public and let the various domain lords and divine kings see Divine King Baifeng's ugly actions clearly. Divine King Baifeng's anger surged as her eyes shot out a cold light. Qin Yi and Wuxia also revealed anger as they accumulated divine power in their bodies, ready to attack Jiang Tianyi at any time. Only the heavenly smelting Divine Craftsman was filled with pride and was in a good mood. Previously, he was worried that Divine King Baifeng would not help him deal with Jiang Tianyi. Who would have thought that Jiang Tianyi was so arrogant and did not know what was good for him, offending Divine King Baifeng so easily. Thus, the heavenly smelting Divine Craftsman decided to fan the flames and laughed loudly, "Ha ha ha ha. Kid, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You dare to threaten Domain Lord Baifeng? Image recording crystal. Record it all, it is useless. If you can release it to the world, this king will twist my head off and kick it like a ball. You can forget about walking out of Flowing Creek Pass today." These few words from the heavenly smelting Divine Craftsman further proved that Divine King Baifeng was here to kill Jiang Tianyi. Divine King Bai Feng took the blame for nothing and was even more furious in her heart. But she could not fall out with him in public and reprimand the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. Jiang Tianyi shook the image recording crystal in his hand, the cold smile on his face deepening as he said loudly, "Indeed, this king guessed correctly. Domain Lord Bai Feng is making such a big fuss because you want to kill this king. However, Bai Feng, do you know who this king is? For a mere lesser divine craftsman, you want to kill this king to the last man. Have you considered the consequences?" The moment these words came out, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman, Qin Yi, and Wu Shui were all stunned. Divine King Bai Feng also narrowed both eyes and asked in a low voice, "Are you threatening this king? Then this king wants to see just what kind of backing you have, to actually give you such great confidence." Chapter 34-49. Although the heavenly smelting divine craftsman purposely infuriated Jiang Tianyi and forced Jiang Tianyi to become enemies with Bai Feng, causing Bai Feng to be extremely dissatisfied, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman was like a fox assuming the tiger's might. However, there was no turning back. Bai Feng had already brought people to surround the palace of heaven's will. Naturally, she would not let him off so easily. In addition, Jiang Tianyi's attitude was very arrogant and he even threatened him in front of everyone. Even more so, he could not shrink back. Otherwise, he would lose all of his dignity as an area master. Jiang Tianyi stared at Bai Feng and said in a solemn tone, "This king's name is Tianyi, surname Jiang." Bai Feng's eyes narrowed when she heard the word Jiang. Her heart skipped a beat, and she had a bad feeling about this. He glared at Jiang Tianyi and asked in a low voice, "What do you mean?" Without waiting for Jiang Tianyi to reply, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman laughed wildly and said, "Ha ha ha ha. Too laughable. Look at you putting on an act, you really think you're something. Jiang Tianyi. What kind of lousy name was that? This prince has never heard of it before. Even if you have some fame in other regions, this is the Fire Mulberry region. White Phoenix region lord has the final say. Do you think you can intimidate Domain Lord White Phoenix with just your name? Do you think White Phoenix Domain Lord is a 3-year-old child?" The heavenly smelting divine craftsman pointed at Jiang Tianyi and scolded arrogantly, "Little brat, don't even think about threatening Domain Lord Bai Feng, even if you were a Domain Lord." In the eyes of the 200,000 soldiers and several hundred divine lords, there was nothing wrong with the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's attitude. As citizens of the Fire Mulberry domain, they naturally had to protect Domain Lord White Phoenix and fight against Jiang Tianyi together. However, no one would have thought that Bai Feng was already unable to restrain her anger. She wanted nothing more than to tear the divine craftsman's mouth apart. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's intentions were too obvious. He was forcing Bai Feng and Jiang Tianyi to become enemies, not giving them any chance to ease the tension between them. "Tianyi, shut up." Bai Feng was at the end of her patience, and she shouted angrily with a dark face. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman smiled awkwardly and nodded in agreement. Jiang Tianyi glanced at the heavenly smelting divine craftsman with a mocking gaze and sneered, "Old thing, you're finished." After saying that, he ignored the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's venomous gaze and continued to speak to Bai Feng. "I come from the heavenly south and live in the divine attraction grotto heaven. I am now the Jiang clan's 7th young master." Jiang Tianyi believed that Bai Feng should have understood by now. This was indeed the case. Bai Feng immediately frowned, and her pupils constricted. Dense shock flashed in her eyes. The Jiang clan of the divine attraction paradise? The others did not understand. Ordinary god kings did not understand. However, Bai Feng knew very well what this meant. My guess is right. It is indeed the Jiang clan. No wonder he could ruthlessly humiliate the heavenly smelting divine craftsman with such an arrogant attitude. The Jiang clan. One of the ancient clans, one of the clans that is most proficient in the art of refining. Their strength is immeasurable. Bai Feng muttered to herself with a rather solemn expression. She was hesitating and weighing the pros and cons in her heart. In fact, he was also a disciple of an ancient clan. He came from the divine Phoenix Grotto heaven and was a descendant of the Phoenix race. It was precisely because of this that he knew better than anyone just how powerful and terrifying the ancient clans were. Even though the present boundless heaven continent was ruled by the Azura God Emperor, the Emperor Lord revered by billions of living beings. However, the foundation and status of the 18 ancient clans were not inferior to the Azura God Emperor. Most of the time, the Azura God Emperor was also wary of the ancient clans and was not willing to easily interfere in the grudges between the ancient clans. Furthermore, the 18 ancient clans also had a corresponding tacit understanding and agreement between themselves. Ever since the Azura God Emperor unified boundless heaven continent, the various ancient clans became even more united and formed an alliance. Only in this way would they not be disintegrated, divided, and ultimately subdued by the Azura God Emperor. Bai Feng had some understanding of the Jiang clan, so she stared at Jiang Tianyi and observed carefully. Jiang Tianyi's appearance and bloodline aura showed that he was indeed a disciple of the Jiang clan. Bai Feng had to consider how to deal with this matter. The other party was a disciple of the Jiang clan and the most outstanding young genius. Of course, she could not easily become enemies with him. Otherwise, the Jiang clan and the Phoenix race would become enemies because of this and affect the unity of the ancient clan alliance. If the Phoenix race pursued the matter, he, as the Fire Mulberry region lord, would bear the brunt and definitely be severely punished. However, the current situation was very awkward. Both sides were at daggers drawn. As the Fire Mulberry region lord, he could not take the initiative to back down and admit defeat. Otherwise, not only would it damage the Phoenix race's reputation, but it would also damage the region lord's dignity and make him a laughingstock. Bai Feng was still considering how to resolve the situation in front of her without hurting the harmony and losing face. However, when the heavenly smelting divine craftsman saw that she was hesitating, he had a bad feeling and was filled with anxiety. Damn it! Bai Feng is actually frightened? Could it be that the brat's background is really very strong? This won't do. I cannot let Bai Feng back down. Otherwise, how can I have a chance to take revenge? Furthermore, I have already become enemies with Jiang Tianyi. Even if I don't take revenge on him, he definitely won't let me off. Thinking of this, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman made a decision. He laughed disdainfully and pointed at Jiang Tianyi and mocked, "Brat, what's so great about having the surname Jiang? Just in this flowing river pass, I can find a few thousand people with the surname Jiang for you. I don't care what kind of backing or background you have. Today, you must be investigated by White Feng Region Lord. As long as you collude with those fugitives, you should be punished as well." White Feng Region Lord was personally appointed by His Majesty the God Emperor. No matter how strong your backing is, can it be stronger than His Majesty the God Emperor? Not only did you disobey the investigation, you even threatened the Region Lord. Such actions are going against His Majesty the God Emperor's rule. It is equivalent to rebellion. Following the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's voice, it spread throughout the entire flowing river pass. The 200,000 soldiers and hundreds of god monarchs all expressed their agreement. Everyone was agitated and felt a strong sense of pride in their hearts. Even the Fire Mulberry Emperor was incited. Only Qin Yi and Wu Shui realized that something was wrong. They kept staring at Bai Feng's reaction, waiting for his orders. Seeing that the soldiers' fighting spirit had been ignited, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman no longer hesitated and shouted loudly, "Soldiers, protect the Fire Mulberry region. It is time to be loyal to His Majesty the God Emperor. Break into the bandits' palace and help the region lord and lord messenger search for the fugitives. Kill." Following his order, the 100,000 soldiers surrounding the Palace of Heavens could no longer suppress their fighting spirit and killing intent. They all waved their swords and sabers and attacked. Swish! 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 Rumble! Rumble! In the next moment, hundreds of thousands of light blades and divine art shadows flooded the Palace of Heavens like a flood. The terrifying divine art torrent fiercely bombarded the Golden Palace, producing a deafening sound. The soldiers' fighting spirit surged as they attacked without caring about their own safety. However, Bai Feng was shocked and angry. He glared at the heavenly smelting divine craftsman and shouted angrily, "Bastard! This king will not forgive you for acting on your own initiative." The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's thoughts had been seen through, so he naturally felt guilty. However, what was done could not be undone. The war had already begun and he had achieved his goal. Facing Bai Feng's reprimand, he sneered in his heart, but he pretended to be innocent. "Region Lord, I only stood out to say a few words of justice to protect you and His Majesty the God Emperor's dignity. Don't accuse me wrongly. Look, the soldiers are all filled with righteous indignation. They are willing to risk their lives for you." Chapter 3450. Divine King White Phoenix nearly vomited blood. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's intentions were clear, but he still pretended to be innocent and loyal. If not for everyone present, Divine King White Phoenix really wanted to cripple him. Since the battle had begun, White Phoenix and the Jiang clan had already become enemies. He could only make the best of it. As the ruler of a region, the greatest taboo was to be overcautious and indecisive. However, Divine King White Phoenix was not willing to be used by the heavenly smelting divine craftsman like this and would not charge forward. He pointed at the Palace of Heavens amidst the divine art torrent and ordered the heavenly smelting divine craftsman, "Didn't you want to kill your enemy? Now that he's in front of you, go kill him. If you can't kill him, this king will kill you." The heavenly smelting divine craftsman immediately trembled in fright. He knew that he was too hasty and had already offended Divine King White Phoenix. But he did not expect Divine King White Phoenix to be so angry. This made him have to guess and mutter, "The matter is actually so serious. That Jiang brat's backer is so powerful that even White Phoenix is afraid. If so, then if I kill him, I will definitely suffer the Jiang clan's revenge." At this moment, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman felt a little regretful. After all, he was also afraid that the Jiang clan's power was too great. He could not withstand the Jiang clan's revenge at all. But an arrow on the bow had to be shot. Divine King White Phoenix stared at him and kept urging him. Seeing that he was still hesitating and considering, Divine King White Phoenix actually took out a divine saber, his entire body bursting with fierce killing intent. Looking at that posture, if he still did not attack Jiang Tianyi, Divine King White Phoenix would start with him. Helpless, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman could only brace himself, take out a divine spear, and attack the Palace of Heaven's will. "Kill!" The heavenly smelting divine craftsman roared, holding the scarlet divine spear with both hands, he stabbed out 81 times consecutively, attacking the Palace of Heaven's will. At this time, the Palace of Heaven's will was enduring the furious attacks of 100,000 defenders and was violently shaking. The Palace of Heaven's will had many defensive arrays, and all of them were activated, forming 4 layers of incomparably thick shields. Hundreds of thousands of divine art attacks, like a storm, struck the 5-colored shields, creating deafening explosions, but ultimately failed to break through the shields. As for the divine palace within the shield, it was completely unscathed. Jiang Tianyi flew out of the divine palace and did not need the protection of the defensive array. His entire body was glowing with dark golden divine light. He wore a magnificent golden divine armor and stood in the dusky sky. No matter how many attacks landed on his body, they couldn't hurt him at all. He held a pitch-black meteoric iron divine bow in his left hand, while he took out talismans one after another in his right hand. These talismans turned into silver arrows and shot towards the crowd around him. Boom! Every single silver arrow that flew out was like a shooting star that fell into the battle formation of the defending army. It erupted with silver divine flames that covered the heavens and the earth, and it erupted with an enormous explosion that shook the heavens and the earth. The power of each arrow was enough to destroy everything within a radius of a few thousand miles. The destructive power was extremely terrifying. The arrows exploded in the crowd, and the silver divine flames instantly engulfed hundreds and thousands of defenders, reaping one life after another. Any defender that was engulfed by the silver divine flames was burned to ashes and dregs. Not even a single bone was left. Even the divine lords in the battle formation would die on the spot after being engulfed by the silver divine flames, let alone the majority of celestial gods. Apart from divine kings, no one could block his divine arrows. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the 81 spear lights shot out by the divine craftsman struck the divine palace of heaven's will's barrier with an earth-shattering explosion. The spear lights shattered, but the barrier remained intact. It was simply too difficult for the divine craftsman, a lesser divine king, to break through a mid-king level defensive array with his strength. The divine craftsman was very unconvinced, so he used all his strength to attack the divine palace of heaven's will. But the result was the same. The barrier of divine light that seemed to be only 2 feet thick was still intact. Jiang Tianyi had already shot out more than 200 arrows, slaughtering 34,000 defenders. In just a few dozen breaths, a third of the army of 100,000 had been slaughtered. Such ferocious divine might not only intimidated the surviving 60,000 defenders, but it also filled them with fear. Even divine King White Phoenix, Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and the others had grave and sinister expressions. Damn it! We have to hold him back, or else the army of 100,000 won't be enough to kill him. Divine King White Phoenix frowned and gave the order. Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and Emperor Huisong acknowledged the order at the same time. They waved their weapons and attacked Jiang Tianyi. 6 gods domineering blade. Red lotus sky opening strike. Mountain shattering divine sword. The 3 used all their strength and used powerful killing moves to attack Jiang Tianyi from different directions. The divine craftsman saw that continuing to attack the divine palace of heaven's will was futile, so he turned and attacked Jiang Tianyi. Storm wind fire spear. Heavenly smelting divine craftsman roared angrily. He held the divine spear with both hands and stabbed out spear shadows that filled the sky. He released dozens of laws and divine powers, forming wind, fire, and lightning that filled the sky. Jiang Tianyi could ignore the attacks of tens of thousands of soldiers and focus on killing the defenders. However, he couldn't ignore the attacks of 3 divine kings and a peak divine lord. Facing the divine arts of the 4 experts, he flipped the meteoric metal divine bow in his left hand and released pitch-black ripples that expanded like a whirlpool. He threw out a giant palm with his right hand and clashed with the 4 experts. Boom! 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 In the next moment, a deafening muffled sound burst out and resounded through the sky. The divine spells of the 4 powerhouses were all shattered by the giant golden palm. The destructive shockwaves were absorbed by the mysterious ripples and merged into 4 water tank-sized light balls that flew back at an even faster speed toward the divine craftsman, Qin Yi, and the others. Such a situation caused the 4 experts to be horrified. They didn't expect Jiang Tianyi to react so quickly and have such rich battle experience. He used one move to not only resolve their attacks, but also counterattack. This was truly frightening. The divine craftsman, Qin Yi, and the others all defended as if they were facing a great enemy. All kinds of defensive shields, armors, and defensive secret techniques were used. Bang! 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 Emperor Huisong was the first to be sent flying. Although he had raised his defense to the extreme, he was still a peak divine lord. The difference in strength between him and a middle-level divine king was too great. The power of that colorful ball of light had long since exceeded the limits of what he could endure. When he was hit, he didn't even have the slightest resistance and was sent flying hundreds of miles away with blood spurting out of his 7 orifices. Not only were his arms broken, but there was also a big hole in his chest. Blood kept coming out of his mouth. Emperor Huisong only felt a lingering fear after suffering such a serious injury. He was glad that he had survived the disaster. It's too scary. Fortunately, I defended with all my strength and survived. Otherwise, I would have been killed instantly. Sogu. Chapter 34-51. Emperor Huisong was well aware. With his strength, in front of Jiang Tianyi, he could not even withstand one move. If he braced himself and charged forward to fight, he would only end up turning into ashes. Therefore, he took the opportunity of being heavily injured, his hair disheveled, face covered in blood, and rushed in front of Baifeng. Domain Lord, subordinate is no match for that Jiang clan thief. He is at least a middle-level god king. Emperor Huisong did not tidy up his ragged clothes and hair, nor did he wipe away the blood on his face, looking very miserable and disheveled. Even when he spoke, he was at his last gasp, looking like he would not live for long. Divine King Baifeng glanced at him, waved his hand, and said, "Since you are heavily injured, then withdraw and heal." Emperor Huisong was naturally happy that Domain Lord did not send him to his death. But he was rather smart, bowed and thanked, and said in a firm tone, "Domain Lord, although subordinate is heavily injured, the soldiers are still fighting a bloody battle, how can subordinate cower? Even if subordinate is heavily injured, subordinate also has to contribute to Domain Lord. Subordinate will go to the star-killing array, personally preside over the operation of the grand array, and assist Domain Lord to kill the enemy." Emperor Huisong would do this. Divine King Baifeng was not surprised. After all, Emperor Huisong was promoted by him, he knew him very well. "All right, you go." Divine King Baifeng nodded in agreement. Emperor Huisong acknowledged the order, hurriedly bowed and retreated, flying towards the divine array 4,000 miles away. Until now, he dared to circulate his skill to suppress his injuries, hurriedly consumed the divine pill to heal. On the other side, divine craftsman Sky Smelting, Qin Yi, and Wu Shui had been trying their best to besiege Jiang Tianyi, but ultimately had no effect. Although Qin Yi and Wu Shui were middle-level god kings, they were only 4th-level god king realm. Not to mention divine craftsman Sky Smelting, he was just a 3rd-degree realm low-level god king. And Jiang Tianyi was the leader among middle-level god kings, his strength reached 6th-level god king realm. Divine craftsman Sky Smelting was obsessed with the path of refining, his combat power was not outstanding. No matter how he attacked with all his strength, it was no different from scratching an itch to Jiang Tianyi. Qin Yi and Wu Shui's attacks could barely threaten Jiang Tianyi. But Jiang Tianyi could resolve their besiegement with a little trick. The two sides fought for 100 breaths of time, but Jiang Tianyi was still unharmed. On the other hand, divine craftsman Tianyi, Qin Yi, and Wu Shui were all heavily injured. This was especially true for the divine blacksmith, who had been heavily taken care of by Jiang Tianyi. He had long been beaten beyond recognition and was covered in blood. If not for divine King White Phoenix watching from afar, he would have had thoughts of retreating long ago and wanted to withdraw from the battle circle. He felt that if this continued, he would soon be killed by Jiang Tianyi. There was nothing he could do. Jiang Tianyi was targeting him too much. During the battle, there were clearly better opportunities to heavily injure Qin Yi or Wu Shui. But Jiang Tianyi wanted to deal with him. On the surface, it looked like the three of them were attacking Jiang Tianyi. Everyone was putting in the same amount of effort and danger. But in reality, Qin Yi and Wu Shui were relatively safe. He was in the most dangerous situation. The two sides fought for a while, and the heavenly smelting divine craftsman's injuries became even more miserable. Not only was his left arm chopped off, but there were also dozens of bloody holes in his chest and back. His internal organs and blood were flowing out together. Not only did he look miserable, but his strength had also greatly decreased, and he only had about 50% of his combat strength left. Under such circumstances, he could not hold on anymore. But he did not dare to turn around and flee. He could only seek help from Divine King White Phoenix not far away. Domain Lord, Your Excellency, save me. This guy's strength is too strong. If you still don't make a move, not only will I be killed by him, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers will also die. Your Excellency, it's nothing if I die in battle for you. But those hundreds of thousands of soldiers are all your most loyal subjects. The heavenly smelting divine craftsman's voice was very loud, spreading throughout the entire flowing Chuan Pass. Not only did the remaining 40,000 defending troops on the battlefield hear it, the 100,000 defending troops around flowing Chuan Pass also heard it clearly. Everyone's gazes gathered on Divine King White Phoenix. That's right, Jiang Tianyi's strength was terrifyingly powerful. An entire 100,000 defending troops besieged him, but in such a short time, more than half of them were slaughtered by him. Heavenly Smelting, Qin Yi, and Wu Shui besieged him with all their might but could not do anything to him. Instead, they were beaten until their injuries were miserable. The defending troops' morale was low, everyone on tenterhooks. If Divine King White Phoenix still did not make a move, the hundreds of thousands of defending troops would probably be discouraged. Now, the heavenly smelting divine craftsman was shouting at the top of his lungs again. He even said that it was fine if he died, but did not want the hundreds of thousands of soldiers to die. This was equivalent to threatening White Phoenix in front of everyone. If he still did not make a move, he was ignoring the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. You damned dog! Too despicable! White Phoenix was so angry that even his face turned green, roaring furiously in his heart. He really wanted to kill the heavenly smelting divine craftsman. But with hundreds of thousands of soldiers watching, not only could he not do so, but he also could not show his anger. Soldiers, no matter how strong the enemy is, with this king here, he will definitely die. Divine King White Phoenix shouted, his left hand forming a divine seal, his right hand waving a divine saber, attacking Jiang Tianyi. Thief, take this king's saber. Divine King White Phoenix finally made a move. Heavenly Phoenix Moon slashing saber. At this moment, divine flames surged from his body, forming the image of 1,000 feet tall fire phoenix behind him. The scarlet divine saber in his hand also slashed out a divine saber beam that was hundreds of thousands of feet long. The saber beam was like blood, tearing through the night, carrying close to 200 types of laws and divine power as it slashed toward Jiang Tianyi with a momentum that could destroy everything. Before the saber beam arrived, the world changed color. The already dark sky turned completely pitch black. Only the 5-colored divine light and blood-colored divine flames were left in the world. An incomparable pressure instantly enveloped Jiang Tianyi, causing his back to turn cold and his heart to fill with dread. In comparison, the combined forces of heavenly smelting, Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and the 100,000 defending troops were inferior to Divine King White Phoenix alone. The pressure he felt was even greater. He did not doubt that if Divine King White Phoenix's saber strike hit him, he would be killed instantly. Even if he was not killed on the spot, he would be severely injured and his strength would plummet. At the critical moment, he did not hesitate to give up chasing the heavenly smelting divine craftsman and wanted to retreat. However, the entire brimming Chuan Pass was sealed by several divine arrays. The space within 5,000 miles was sealed, making it impossible for him to teleport. His flying speed was also several times lower than usual. There was no way to dodge Divine King White Phoenix's saber strike. Helpless, Jiang Tianyi could only use all his strength to defend with all his might. Not only did he form a divine light shield, the divine armor he wore also activated an array. At the same time, he held the heavens will divine bow and shot 6 arrows at divine King White Phoenix. Whoosh! 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 The 6 arrows tore through the night sky like meteors, instantly striking the saber beam with deafening booms. However, all the arrows collapsed, but the saber beam was undamaged. Its speed and power were only reduced by 30%. The next instant, the saber beam drowned Jiang Tianyi's figure and struck him. Chapter 3452. Bam! Amidst a deafening explosion, Jiang Tianyi was sent flying backwards. The multicolored divine light shield collapsed, splashing out fragments that blotted out the sky and covered the sun. The golden divine armor he was wearing had deep dents on his shoulders and chest. He was still flying in the night sky and his face was pale. Blood was flowing out of his nose and mouth. Even though he was at the 6th level of the divine king realm, he could easily kill Tianyi, Qin Yi, and Wu Shui. However, there was still a big gap between him and a 7th level divine king. Divine King White Phoenix injured him with her first move. Even though it was only a light injury, he was sent flying dozens of miles away. He looked quite miserable. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers who were originally low in morale cheered excitedly. Their morale was back to its peak. Not only the tens of thousands of soldiers who were fighting, even the 100,000 soldiers who were guarding the divine array around Manchuan Pass were excited. Taking this opportunity, the Emperor of Fire Mulberry Tree hurriedly led the divine monarchs and shouted in admiration, "The Domain Lord is mighty." The Emperor of Fire Mulberry Tree led the cheers and the tens of thousands of soldiers echoed. Soon, hundreds of thousands of people shouted in unison. A deafening sound wave spread throughout a radius of several tens of thousands of miles, shaking until the entire flowing creek pass started trembling. At this moment, divine King White Phoenix's majesty was undeniable. Qin Yi and Wu Shui did not dare to delay and continued to attack Jiang Tianyi. Tianyi divine craftsman took this opportunity to retreat 1,000 miles away. He hurriedly took a divine pill and healed himself. Divine King White Phoenix was not in a hurry to kill Jiang Tianyi. She glanced at Tianyi divine craftsman coldly and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She had decided that after she finished off Jiang Tianyi tonight, she would not let Tianyi divine craftsman off. This old thing has been domineering in the Fire Mulberry Tree region for nearly 10,000 years. How dare you play tricks in front of me? If I don't teach you an unforgettable lesson, how can you control the billions of people in the future? At this moment, Jiang Tianyi resisted the attacks of the 40,000 soldiers and 2 divine kings while he shouted angrily at divine King White Phoenix, "White Phoenix! Do you really want to take revenge for the heavenly smelting divine craftsman and kill me? Are you sure you want to be enemies with the Jiang clan?" Jiang Tianyi's expression and eyes were as dark as ice and sharp. A long time ago, he had even promised Ji Tianqing that with the Jiang clan's power and foundation, Bai Feng would definitely give him face. He did not expect that after he revealed his identity, the White Phoenix Divine King still made a move to attack. Bai Feng did not give him any face at all, nor did she care about the Jiang clan's deterrence. This caused him to be abnormally ashamed and angry, and his heart was truly filled with killing intent. However, Divine King White Phoenix stared at him expressionlessly and said in a low voice, "Jiang Tianyi, no matter who you are, I am only following orders." So what if he offended the Jiang clan? This king is working for the Celestial Aspect Ambassador, serving His Majesty the God Emperor. If you had allowed me to search the palace, how could things have developed to this point? Divine King White Phoenix's original intention was not to become enemies with the Jiang clan. But now that things had come to this, it was too late to say anything. In front of hundreds of thousands of soldiers, he could not shrink back either. Otherwise, it would prove that he was afraid of the Jiang clan, and his dignity as a region lord would be gone. Jiang Tianyi nodded and said with a cold smile, "Very good. Bai Feng, since you are so vicious, then there's nothing to say. If I die in battle here tonight, you and the Phoenix clan will not be able to escape responsibility. Just wait to suffer the Jiang clan's wrath. As he said, he took out a transmission jade slip from his interspatial ring and entered a message inside. He wanted to report tonight's matter to the Jiang clan. This way, even if he was unfortunately killed by the White Phoenix Divine King, the Jiang clan would also help him take revenge. Divine King White Phoenix was a wily old fox. The moment he saw Jiang Tianyi take out the transmission jade slip, he understood what he wanted to do. Immediately, Divine King White Phoenix's pupils constricted, his eyes flashing with cold killing intent. Jiang Tianyi. If you cooperate with me, perhaps I won't be so ruthless. But if you do this, then don't blame me for cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots, eliminating future troubles forever. As he said that, Divine King White Phoenix waved his divine saber again and attacked Jiang Tianyi fiercely. He wanted to stop Jiang Tianyi from sending the message to prevent the Jiang clan from knowing about this. As long as the news did not spread, he could kill Jiang Tianyi quickly and hide it from everyone. 7 Heart Annihilation / Bai Feng held the divine saber with both hands as divine flames surged from his body. The Annihilation Divine Eye on his forehead also released dark red blood flames. Swoosh! The divine saber released a 10,000-meter saber light mixed with the mysterious Annihilation blood flames. It carried unparalleled power and a mysterious power that could destroy one's mind as it slashed toward Jiang Tianyi. At this moment, the saber light died, flowing creek past the color of blood. The space within 10,000 miles also rippled violently as if it could not withstand the might of the divine saber and was about to collapse. Jiang Tianyi was under great pressure and could not move an inch. His body also became crooked. Bai Feng. You old bastard, the Jiang clan and you are irreconcilable. Jiang Tianyi had a bad premonition and even felt the aura of death descend. He roared furiously. However, he would not sit and wait for death. He ignored the tens of thousands of soldiers and the 2 divine kings and used all his strength to block Bai Feng. Kaboom! The next moment, the saber light slashed down and shattered Jiang Tianyi's divine light shield. Then, the Tianyi divine bow in his hands was also sent flying by the saber light. He was about to be struck by the saber light again and be sent flying with heavy injuries. At this critical moment, a blinding white light suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Tianyi. It was a white light wall that was tens of thousands of feet tall and tens of thousands of feet wide. It was thick and sturdy. Kaboom! The saber light slashed the white light wall and exploded with an earth-shattering sound. Instantly, the saber light and the white light wall collapsed at the same time, exploding into billions of divine light shards that scattered in the night sky. Divine King White Phoenix's ultimate killing move was actually blocked. Jiang Tianyi was not injured. He was only pushed back tens of thousands of feet by the violent shockwave. This scene stunned him. Divine King Bai Feng, Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and the tens of thousands of soldiers also revealed stunned looks. No one could have thought that there was actually someone even stronger who made a move at the critical moment and saved Jiang Tianyi. Everyone turned their heads to look at Tianyi Palace. Their gazes gathered on a white figure at the palace's entrance. Jiang Tianyi came back to his senses and also turned his head to look at the divine palace's entrance. When he saw that white-robed figure clearly, he immediately frowned, his expression becoming very complicated. Young Master Tianqing. Indeed, it was him who saved me. But, why can he appear at this time? Bai Feng made such a big fuss in order to intercept and kill him. Doesn't his appearance confirm that Bai Feng's guess was correct? Although Jiang Tianyi was saved by Ji Tianqing, he felt grateful and rejoiced in his heart. But he was even more worried in his heart. Tonight was definitely a situation where one party would not rest until one party died. Chapter 34-53. Swish. Jiang Tianyi could not be bothered to heal his injuries. He quickly flew out of the palace and arrived in front of Ji Tianqing. Young Master Tianqing, why did you come out? They set up an ambush here to deal with you. Jiang Tianyi frowned and looked at Ji Tianqing, his voice filled with worry and urgency. Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianqing smiled and asked, don't you find it strange? Don't you want to know what grudges I have with Celestial Aspect Ambassador and Divine King White Phoenix? Sigh. Jiang Tianyi could not help but sigh, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What's the point of asking this now? Even if you don't have grudges with Celestial Aspect Ambassador, White Phoenix does not intend to let me go. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a chuckle, kid, you're quite similar to your second uncle. However, you are already heavily injured, and you still want to fight alone. Isn't that a bit too much? If I don't help, you will be heavily injured by White Phoenix again. Jiang Tianyi was temporarily speechless. After thinking about it seriously, it seemed like this was indeed the best solution. If Ji Tianqing did not appear, he would not be able to stop White Phoenix alone, and he would not be able to escape Flowing River Pass. Alright, then let's fight side by side and kill White Phoenix and this group of bastards. Jiang Tianyi quickly adjusted his mentality and regrouped. He extended his right hand and called back the divine bow that had fallen a few hundred miles away. Swish! The meteoric metal divine bow flew back to him. He grabbed it with his left hand and took out 4 talismans from his interspatial ring with his right hand, holding them between his fingers. As he circulated his divine power, the 4 talismans lit up with divine flames and turned into dazzling arrows. The bowstring was pulled to a full moon, and the 4 arrows were ready to shoot, rippling with a terrifying power that could destroy everything. Ji Tianqing also took out the Sword of Burial of Heaven and charged toward Divine King White Phoenix with soaring battle intent. Tianyi, leave White Phoenix to me. I'll leave the rest to you. As his voice fell, he had already turned into a dazzling meteor and attacked Divine King White Phoenix. Us. Jiang Tianyi was stunned. He looked left and right, but did not see any other helpers. At this moment, 4 figures walked out of the palace gate behind him. Heavens will God King, we are here to help you. Jiang Tianyi turned his head and saw that the 4 figures were 2 men and 2 women. He had seen 2 of the men on Mount Fire Dragon before. They were Chao Qingyu and Yank. As for the 2 ladies, one of them was wearing a long green dress. She was pretty and graceful, and she was a first-level divine king. She was walking side by side with Chao Qingyu. It was Lan, her. On the other hand, there was a human woman wearing a silver nebula dress. She was unparalleled in her generation. Although she only had the strength of a 9th-level divine lord, she possessed a sacred and dignified aura. Her clear eyes were filled with calmness and wisdom. She held a divine sword in each hand, 1 gold and 1 silver. They were as dazzling as the sun and the moon, and they emitted the energy fluctuations of a king-grade mid-grade divine artifact. Moreover, Yank, Chao Qingyu, and Lan seemed to treat her with respect. Jiang Tianyi knew at a glance that this devastatingly beautiful human woman was most likely Master Grandpa's Tao companion. He had such a guess in his heart, but he did not ask, nor did he expose it. He nodded at the 4 of them and revealed a friendly smile. He said, many thanks, everyone. Then let us fight side by side and kill our way out of Flowing River Pass. With that said, he held his bow and aimed at the tens of thousands of defenders 1,000 miles away. He instantly shot out 4 arrows. Whoosh! The 4 arrows tore through the night sky like meteors, instantly crossing 1,000 miles and descending on the heads of the tens of thousands of defenders. The arrows suddenly dispersed, blasting into the crowd. Boom! 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 Following 4 deafening booms, the defenders' battle formation erupted with starlight, blotting out the sky and blotting out the sun. At least 2,000 defenders were blown to smithereens on the spot, turning to dust. Jiang Tianyi did not waste time to see the result. The moment the 4 arrows were shot out, he took out 4 talismans and turned them into surveillance, shooting them at the defenders' battle formation. 2,000 miles away, Ji Tianqing Divine King White Phoenix had already begun fighting. Divine King White Phoenix was extremely powerful, having the power to destroy heaven and earth with every move. She had also grasped hundreds of divine Tao laws and could be said to be ferocious and unpredictable. However, Ji Tianqing was fearless. He transformed into a 300-meter-tall golden-armored giant, wielding the burial of heaven and attacking wildly, clashing head-on with Divine King White Phoenix. He used hundreds of sword Tao techniques and various ultimate mystiques from time to time, but he was actually evenly matched with Divine King White Phoenix. In a short time, it was difficult to determine the victor between the two. They could only tangle. Of course, the shock waves from their battle spread in all directions, enveloping the entire flowing river pass. The 40,000 defenders were affected, their numbers dropping sharply. In less than 30 seconds, more than 10,000 were killed. Coupled with Jiang Tianyi's attacks from afar, nearly 10,000 were killed in 30 seconds. More than half of the defenders were killed, and the remaining 20,000 threw away their armor and fled to the edge of the battlefield in a sorry state. At this moment, Chao Qingyu and Yank targeted Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and the sky-smelting divine blacksmith. The 5 of them began an intense battle. Lan Er and Yun Yao, on the other hand, held their divine weapons and chased after the defenders. How could the 20,000 defenders, who had lost their will to fight, withstand their slaughter? In less than a quarter of an hour, the 20,000 survivors were slaughtered by the 2 of them. The inside of Flowing Creek Pass became empty. High in the sky, Ji Tianqing and Divine King White Phoenix fought fiercely. Their figures flickered and teleported, releasing destructive divine arts. Shockwaves spread out like ripples, constantly crashing into Flowing River Pass. The pass, which had a radius of 5,000 miles, was quickly reduced to ruins. Although it was almost impossible for Ji Tianqing to defeat White Phoenix. He could temporarily stall White Phoenix so that she couldn't attack Jiang Tianyi and the others. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Jiang Tianyi, Chao Qingyu, and Yank teamed up to deal with Qin Yi, Wu Shui, and the sky-smelting divine blacksmith. The sky-smelting divine blacksmith was already severely injured, and he was attacked by Jiang Tianyi. He didn't even last 15 minutes before he was killed by Jiang Tianyi's divine bow. Not only was his divine body reduced to ashes, but his divine spark was also shattered. Qin Yi and Wu Shui were also in a miserable state. Their injuries kept worsening, and they were covered in blood. 15 minutes later, both of them were severely injured and shot by Jiang Tianyi a few more times. Their divine bodies were destroyed on the spot. The couple only had their divine sparks left. They retreated in panic and fled to the edge of the battlefield. Jiang Tianyi locked onto their divine sparks and kept shooting arrows, chasing after them in Flowing River Pass. At this time, Chao Qingyu and Yank went to help Lan and Yun Yao deal with the 100,000 defenders around Flowing River Pass. They were scattered and there were a few hundred divine lords in the crowd, so it was difficult to deal with them. But Yank kept an eye on the Emperor of Huasong country and charged forward recklessly. He was unstoppable. The Emperor of Huasong country was already severely injured and couldn't resist at all. He could only dodge and escape. More than 100 imperial guards and divine lords of the Huasong country surrounded him to protect him. That was exactly what Yank wanted. Sword breaks 9 heavens. Sword breaks 9 heavens. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.